At the radio side. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show and our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including Rockin' Out Bumblefoot. Check it out on Shirky Poo's News and shopping on our website. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. Wow, we're nearly at the end of the month once again, and I can tell you this, it is amazing to see how fast that there's only 2 months left in 2021. Man, can we make sure that this year gets over? Let's start 2022. Wasn't this supposed to be a fresh year? Ended up being a fast year. But nonetheless, it's Roundtable time once again. And we want to say a big thank you to our team coming on in tonight from the lovely state of Illinois. We have Nicole Sakach and her dog Spot. I don't know her dog's name. That's okay. And we have John Hudson, the fedora-wearing wonder, and our man on the UFO beat. And, of course, the newest addition to Spaced Out Radio and from UFO Garage Podcast, we got Big Willy Townsend. And I want to bring everybody on in here and hello and thank you so much for being a part of the Roundtable tonight, making it nice and special. And it's going to be a good night. Thank you so much for joining us. Panel, we're going to start off with the first topic du jour. That's a little Canadiana in there. Du jour. All right? And what we're going to start off with is NASA. Now, Bill Nelson, the head of NASA, former senator, former astronaut, totally believes in UFOs. He's talked to pilots that have witnessed up to 300 of them in the United States Navy. I don't see what the Navy has anything to do with NASA. And I'll be honest with you, coming off my latest Dave 101, I'm still a little cranky on this subject. Nicole Sakach, we're going to start with you on this one. All right, NASA now looking into UFOs after all these years, because nothing ever happened in space until the Navy came out and said, oh my gosh, we have Tic Tacs. What do you think's going on?
Well, I think, as we say with most counterparts outside of the community, I feel like these comments makes them late to the party. And not in the cool way, like, oh, I'm fashionably late, guys, let's kick this. You know, like, I brought the party with me. No, it's still blanketed. And I tell you what really kind of has stuck in my head is we've heard people over the last few months or even the last half a year say we as a community need to reach out to people that can help us, like NASA or the environmentalists, things like this. But there's always like this little warning that comes along. Like, we know NASA has data and they won't give it up. And like you said in your 101 last night, are they forgetting about the skeletons in their closets or what's hiding under their bed? Or do they really need to go back and look into their own history? Because I know a lot of people feel like reared up right now. Like, oh, come on. We have eyes on their satellites anytime they show raw footage of anything. Like, it just seems like a little slap in the face. And honestly, I think the warning is, it's like we felt it in a long time. And I think Danny Sheehan has said it best recently. Um, is this what it's going to be for the next 10 or 15 years? Does it have to be that we're going to find a microbe way, way out in space somewhere, and that's going to be the declaration of we're not alone? Is that really the path they're still going to take? Because that's what it feels like to me. So we'll see.
Nicole, I'm going to get you to check your microphone while I go on to someone else because you're sounding really hollow, like you're in a weird room. I think you're on your computer mic rather than your studio mic. John Hudson, I know you have a completely different opinion of this, and we might as well just drop the gloves, John. I know you're a pacifist. I know you're a Buddhist, but I mean, I'm going to put you at center ice with me right now.
Well, first, Dave, I recommend that you look into your history of astronauts because I don't think you realize how many astronauts came from the Navy. It got so bad at one point that the Navy CNO basically had to send a letter to NASA saying that that now Navy cadets, Navy officers were off the charts and could no longer be requested to become astronauts anymore because they were losing so many to NASA. So there is a very tight connection between the astronaut corps and the Navy. There's even been, I believe, at least 3 Navy SEALs that have gone on to become astronauts. So there is quite a lot of connection between the two. As far as Nelson's concerned, my personal opinion is that, I would be surprised if he even had access to the information you're talking about. I would be surprised if he even had the ability to go out and talk to any of those people because at his level, I mean, first off, like his ability to access old information is going to be very, very limited. It's going to be gate checked, in very severe ways. And quite honestly, it's not necessarily in his best interest to do so because right now he's trying to get the whole NASA Corps to support him in his role, right? So there's a kind of an ebb and flow that goes on, whereas all the Navy people, they want to talk about their UFO incidents, right? Whereas, NASA people obviously don't. So, he's basically going to the low-hanging fruit. And then also, like, he can talk about the Navy people. I'm not sure how much he's allowed to say about the NASA people. So, I think that there's, you consider the fact that a NASA administrator is appointed. They're not elected. They're not voted for. They don't come up from NASA ranks. They are, that's true. Sometimes they do, but they're appointed by the president of the United States. And so they're always his boy and everyone in NASA knows that. And so, there's going to be quite a firewall between him and the rest of the organization, depending on how much favor and how tight he gets with them, depending on how much time he's even allowed to serve the role. So, I understand your frustration, but I think, NASA is just as can't remember the word, but broken up as any other organization. I mean, as I've mentioned to you before, there were many, many NASA missions where they even had 2 badges, like one dark, one light. And there were even like guidelines drawn in the NASA bays to say, if you don't have this clearance, you cannot cross this line because this side of the shuttle is doing a mission that you're not cleared for. So, there's been a lot of, NASA's had to support a lot of very, very, very clandestine missions in their history. And so there's a lot of red tape that you have to go through.
Let's bring in Big Willy. What do you think's going on here? Should we be applauding NASA for finally getting on the UFO bandwagon, or should we be, kind of putting the gears to them a little bit and say, you guys have known since you started launching rockets into space that these UFOs have been around?
Yeah, that'd be a little more my opinion. I know it's not a favorable one necessarily, and I don't want to necessarily steal your speech there, Nicole. But to me, I just cannot see. Even though, John, you bring up a great point, there's a lot of compartmentalization within with any entity in the government, and NASA is no exception to this, right? So I can see how we might be correct in saying that he may have not had all the information in front of him, but I cannot see how someone there did not know. And in my own opinion, it's just my opinion on this, I don't think that they really wanted to do it because it's such a weird time to jump in. Why so late in the game, right? Like you brought up, Nicole, like desperately late. Not even hey, your fourth quarter comeback. It's like, hey, the game ended 2 weeks ago or more. Maybe it was last year. And now you're trying to jump in and tell us what's going on. So for me, that's kind of the concern I have, is that I think there's an issue with who. Or I feel like maybe there's a chance that perhaps, and I could be wrong, that in the past they have been forced, or they've been given a timeline that, hey, you need to bring this forward. So that would be my opinion on it right now. But that's about it. That's about all I got. I don't want to give any more or less on it. I think it's somewhat exciting for let's say the populace that's not into this right now, because there are a lot of people, and we take it for granted, and we forget that there are a lot of people who are not having these conversations every night. They're not hanging out in the SOR chat, and just this is an everyday thing that we breathe and live and talk about. So for them, perhaps it's a good thing, but I have my own reservations about it, I would say at this time.
And Dave, if I can add a point, there's been 56 Naval Academy graduates that have become astronauts.
That's pretty cool. But, I mean, it's still the fact that whether or not Bill Nelson has access, when you are in the seat like him, you have to be accountable for your company that you are running. And this is not being very accountable, in my opinion. When you're looking over at the Navy and how many astronauts have come from the Naval Academy, I mean, that is impressive and everything like that. Nothing to be, ashamed of. But when you are sitting there and you are the man at the top, you have to answer questions. You can't just sit there and have your opinion on what's going on. Oh, we got a special guest here for all of you. While I continue on, Dave Scott's here.
I see you guys. I'm glad to see you can make it to the show. Thank you guys for all joining the round table. Thank you for filling in their stunt double. I appreciate
you. I appreciate you.
I think I got it from here.
So, for people who don't know, over at the Paranormal Chop Shop podcast on their YouTube channel, they have a look-alike of me. And I don't know what's going on here. I mean, the resemblance is uncanny. Very handsome. Very dapper. The hair is incredible. I don't know really what is going on at all. This is just...
Well,
I don't even
know what...
I
woke up this morning, and this was the look I had, so I rolled with it. I've been working on this.
You are absolutely handsome, Dave Scott. I will say this, and our radio audience, please go to our YouTube channel and take a good look at this, because, I mean, the looks are absolutely uncanny. Uncanny. Just gorgeous.
I think he's pulling off a better Dave than you are, Dave.
Look at that hair. Look at that hair.
Together.
Hold on a second here. You
You got some competition now, Dave.
Holy cow. This is just... You even got my tattoo on your arm.
That's right.
Creepy, man.
That's just... honestly, it's creepy cool. Creepy cool. All right, let's get back to it.
Tribute, guys. This was meant as a tribute to Dave because, he is our heroes. You dress up as your hero on Halloween. That's what I did, guys.
Oh, my God.
Today.
It's Sonny from Paranormal Chop Shop dressed up as Dave Scott for his Halloween gig. And I have to tell you, Sonny, I actually called my father tonight. I called my father, and I said, Dad, one of the greatest moments of my life has happened tonight. And he's like, what's that? And I was telling him about your show earlier and how you dressed up as me for Halloween. And you painted your beard white. You got this gray granny wig going on, which you look beautiful. And I tell you, man, I have never, ever, and I am so thankful, man. It's just, I don't know how else to put it. I really don't.
You deserve it, buddy. You don't even, there's no thanks required. You deserve it.
Oh.
You mean a lot to a lot of us, and I'm one of those guys. There's a whole bunch of us out there, though. Willy's one of them.
I know.
He loves you. And I know John does.
Oh,
Now we got a clue. We can make fun of Dave as much as we want, as long as it flatters him in the process.
There you go.
wow. Can we get back to NASA? Can we get back to NASA? Are you okay, Nicole? Do you even know, do you even know who you're?
Hi, Nicole.
Can you tell us apart? I got you muted here.
Not really. I backed up my view, and when you're both little thumbnails, it's like a Dave party in here. It's like you're multiplying. Did you drink or eat after 9 a.m.? Are you like a gremlin? Is it something like that?
Oh, it is totally uncanny. Nicole, I'm going to get you to turn your speaker down a bit because we are getting a little bit of feedback, if you don't mind.
Well, yeah, now Nicole sounds good and you're echoing, Dave.
I know. That's
Did
Nicole.
that help?
Not at all. Not at all. Where's your headphones?
Non-existent.
All right. Well, I'm going to mute you here. I'm going to mute you here because it is coming through. All right, now we're going to continue on with the whole NASA talk in regards to, whether or not this is a good thing. And like I said in my Dave 101 regarding this, and Sonny, Dave Scott, sorry, we'll get your opinion on this as well. As, there is a lot of mystery going on regarding what NASA knows. Over the years, we've had astronauts come out and say that they've seen UFOs. We've seen astronauts up on the International Space Station claiming that they've seen anomalous craft. Donna Hare, who used to work for NASA, claims that she watched the program and took part in the program that actually watched photos of UFOs flying through the sky that NASA created. I mean, there's a lot of speculation about what NASA knows and what they're hiding from the public. For you, do you believe that NASA talking about UFOs now through their new head and their leader, Bill Nelson, is just a bunch of hogwash, or do you think it's about time?
Well, I think that's where they're going to start. I think that's what that is. Like, that's their opening. He might not want to talk about it, but somebody might be making him talk about it. And I think that's where they're going to start. And then they can't just say, hey, look at these pictures we got now. Or if after they've denied having stuff like that. So they have to start somewhere. That's how I look at that.
See, my concern, and anybody could jump in after I'm done here. My concern is this. This, to me, is all a part of this weird narrative that is going on about trying to control the UFO phenomena. I have no problem with Bill Nelson coming out and stating that NASA is looking at UFOs. I think it's about time. That's a good thing. Okay, so I don't want to sit here and say that I'm just, sound like I'm bashing NASA for doing something good for once. That isn't the whole point. The point that I'm getting at is, like, really, are you playing us like fools here? You're the space program. If anybody knows what is going on, John, it's NASA. And here they are playing silly.
Portions of NASA, not necessarily all of NASA. And one thing you got to remember, Dave, is you said, he has to speak for this whole organization, but you got to realize that the head of every single group within the government has a high probability of getting called before Congress. And so there is always a firewall placed between them and their organization to protect them so that they don't have to lie before Congress and when they're asked something that they can't talk about. So they're intentionally kept in the dark about a lot of things unless they absolutely have to know, because of the fact that it protects them from being essentially indicted for, basically being charged with, lying to Congress because, they've had to cover up something. And so, that's one of the reasons why he's appointed by the president. That creates part of that boundary. And so it's not that he has to speak for the whole organization. That's what we'd all like to think, but that's not how the government actually works.
Anybody want to chime in on that?
Well, I think, and we already, as you just said there, John, as far as them being so classified, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, and John, you'd know this, I would assume, and I don't know stuff in my head, but the CIA works directly, or helped kind of take a lead role early on with NASA, correct? Back in 58, I think it was, somewhere, give or take, somewhere in there, I believe that they work pretty closely, if anybody knows that.
Well, I don't know if they had any particularly formational role, but But the CIA has always had a very good relationship with NASA.
Okay. The only reason I really bring that up is I remember way back, one of my first episodes I ever did, it was episode 5. We had an episode we were covering that had to do with remote viewing. I think it started with the Gateway Project, as might have been, or Gateway Experience,
or
something
Stargate.
Like that. Yeah. And there is a detailed PDF, I have it on my phone, excuse me,
Right.
that I printed off that tells... It doesn't state if it was NASA employee. I don't think it was. It was through the CIA. But they gave a detailed account of traveling back, I think it was 1,000 years prior to BC, somewhere there, and looking on Mars and digging into that. So if NASA had any sort of information, someone in there had access to that information, I would say, again, I still hold the position that there's no way they haven't known about this. I think he is in a difficult position because he speaks for a lot of people. But... at the end of the day, that unfortunately that is that position, that job, and it is what it is.
Nicole.
I think if I can chime in just a little bit, Big Willy, what you were referring to, I think, is the remote viewing program where
Yes.
Ingo Swann, they actually viewed the moon and Mars and different things. And that's where maybe Pat Price even did as well. But that's where it's they remote viewed structures that were supposedly on the moon, and they could see a colony maybe. But that gets a little fuzzy on whether they were viewing the past, present, or future, when you really dig into the details, which is interesting. And I think it leads to the fact that, yes, we know NASA is compartmentalized, like John was saying, but in this new era of transparency, it would have been nice if the head had at least done a Google search and been we are now looking into UFOs, which is something we've been looking into the whole time, and address maybe some certain areas that we know are of importance, maybe important to our community. They could have addressed certain ones, like we pointed out earlier, those ones that have transmissions where the astronauts are saying something's following them or they see something. There is a further step they could have gone with this, I think. But like Dave pointed out, I think when you're talking about NASA, they are definitely going to control a narrative. And you're talking about programs that have probably been going on longer than I've been alive, some of them, so you don't just toss certain programs and get in new ones. You do tend to modify and go forward. So I wonder what they're modifying and going forward with to help them pursue this more, I guess is one way to look at it. But there's also this giant cache of data we know they have that they might not even know they have. They have sensors, they have satellites, they have this and they have that. Has it always been tuned in to look for UFOs? No. Have they caught stuff? Probably. Who's in charge of going through what they already have? That's another.
They do tend to recycle their tapes a lot, from what we've heard. They do tend to lose some footage.
Guys,
but the thing you got to remember, David,
we're going to get you to hold on right there because we are going to break here at the bottom of the hour. Fedora-wearing John Hudson, Nicole Sakach, Dave Scott Jr., and Big Willy hanging out on the round table tonight. Oh, it's a rough start, but we're getting there.
Last time.
Oh, way better.
Okay, I tweaked it.
There you go. Oh, my God.
Hey, have any of you guys been watching this new adult cartoon that's on Netflix called Inside Job?
Yes, I started last night.
Did you guys see the moon episode yet?
No, I've only seen the first episode.
Wait till you get to the moon episode and fake Buzz Aldrin.
It's going to be great. And that show is awesome. It is very, very funny, guys, if you haven't checked it out.
I need to.
It covers every conspiracy you could possibly think of. It's awesome.
Have you guys all seen that episode of Frasier? That old episode of Frasier where I believe it's Buzz it's on, and basically like he's doing a radio show and like I believe the mic gets cut off and he basically confesses to everything on the radio in the exact way we all believe it happened. And it's an amazing episode, and it's so funny because like right as he finishes, the mic comes back on, and they're like, "What'd he say? What'd he say?" It was an amazing, and the way he said it and what the story he told, you could tell he knew exactly what everyone was saying because he nailed it. Like it was kind of creepy how close he came to the conspiracy theory.
Hey, I think Hollywood has their eyes and ears all over every venue.
Okay, give me Bill, Willy, John, and Nicole. Give me a second. We're going to pull you out, and I want to do a side-by-side comparison here of Dave Scott and myself. That is nice. That is very, very nice. Wow,
it's canny. It's uncanny, man. We look a whole lot alike.
dude, it's friggin' Did you paint your beard white?
Oh yeah, I dyed it white. Dyed it, yeah. And it was hard to do. It was hard to blend this part in because.
Oh my god, dude, this is. Hey Jeff, I if somebody could grab a screenshot of this, I'd appreciate it. I don't know how to do the screenshot thing. Hold on, I'll look at you. Where are you? You're over here.
I'm trying to get down there with you.
Oh, this is just amazing. Amazing.
It is pretty awesome, man. I think I nailed it.
Yeah, thank you, Aunt Selene. Appreciate that. Oh man.
Next year I'm going as Big Willy.
Oh man.
Well, the nice thing is now Dave can finally take vacations, right? Dave can just slip out, and we can be the body double, you know.
Just switch the camera from what is it? You're probably on 1080. Just take it down to like 480, and then
there you go. Just, yeah, that'd be perfect.
Oh yeah.
Love it.
Oh, it'd be perfect.
I want to see what El Omni Volador has to say about this. Like,
now we can have both of you on at the same time.
He will not know which one to shove in the bathroom. That's what's going to go on.
Did you guys happen to catch the show earlier? I wasn't for sure what was going on when I seen in the green room. It said SOR's wife, and I was like, no. And yeah, I was in trouble. Apparently, I'm not supposed to be doing shows with other women in other countries.
That's funny. Oh, there he is.
No. There he is. Yeah.
Oh,
that is awesome.
Come and get him, El Omni.
Ben's got to see that. Ben would love that.
It reminds me so much of Nacho Libre. I don't know why.
Yes,
some people love or hate that movie. No in between, but I love
that movie.
Oh no, that movie's actually was like way much better than I thought it would be.
Oh heck! I mean, it was time and era, but still, like I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a Jack Black guy. I love Jack Black. Anything he does. Man.
Do you know his story with NASA?
No.
His mother.
Yeah.
His mother was actually writing code to actually save a bunch of astronauts on a mission, and actually wrote the code in the emergency room while having him.
No.
True
and was
story.
actually like in bed, like writing code that then got submitted and actually saved the astronauts. And then she had Jack Black.
That is crazy, man. That's why he's so genius. I think he's genius.
Like one of the Apollo missions, like one of them. Like...
Yeah, it was a very. I mean, obviously, it was an early mission, and I mean, the story's out there if you look for it. It's a great story. But yeah, I just found that out like maybe 6 months ago. I was blown away.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys, 8 seconds here. Thank you to Greg, Cat Chaser, Jose, Joey, Ann, and Swampy for the super chats. Here we go. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. I want to remind you that if you miss portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including Rockin' Out to Bumblefoot. Checking out our swag, reading up on Shirky Poo's Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with the Roundtable. And here we go. We got Nicole Sakach. We have Big Willy Townsend. We have John Hudson. We have Dave Scott Jr. There he is. And it's so hard. It's so hard to take this seriously right now. Normally, for our radio listeners, all right, being Halloween and all, I was quite surprised when Sonny from Paranormal Chop Shop decided to dress up as me for Halloween. And honestly, he looks like a twin right now. He looks like a twin. And it is very hard. Very, very hard. And it's just, I can't even look at the camera right now. So you'll have to check out our YouTube channel to check it on out. And let's get back to the show. Oh, my gosh. This is just a train wreck. All right. Topic number 2 that I want to get into. Other controversial UFO news that we are getting into for the Roundtable. This goes to our good friend Anjali. Now, yes, I feel the eyes rolling all over the place for people who do not know who Anjali is. She is a former government employee, apparently of the Defense Department, who claims to have contact with aliens, but not really contact, just telepathic communication to somewhere before the end of 2021. Meet her and a crew that she has allowed Twitter to nominate. And then they're going to go into this mountain cave in the Mojave Desert somewhere on private land, where the rumor is the owner of the private land has no idea who Anjali is. Whether that's been confirmed or not, I'm not sure. And a lot of people have been thinking this is a big farce. And just when you think she goes away, she comes on back. John, I want to start with you on this one because you're one of the eye rollers that I noticed. You're not having fun with this.
It's hard. It's hard because I actually caught wind of this very early. I was actually I believe one of the first people to post about her on Twitter, trying to get Elizondo's attention to her because I figured he could do a good background check on her. And the hard thing for me is that there was 2 people that vouched for her, and one of them I trust, and so the weird part is that it really appears that her professional background is accurate, which puts this whole thing into such a weird context. And I should just add, because I don't know if I should be hiding this or I should be divulging this for honesty, but I'm actually one of those nominated people, and unfortunately, I'm not in the lead right now, but I'm I'm basically second in my group. And so if the first person decides not to go, I might get. Now, fortunately, there's very little chance I'll be able to go either. But I'm first on the list. I don't know why she put me there, but she put me first on the list. I don't know. It's really hard because the thing is that it's incredibly unlikely that a mentally healthy person would make up a story like this and try to play it for this long, right? Is it possible? Sure. But it's statistically, in my opinion, unlikely. And so what options does that leave? That leaves the options that she really believes it, right? And none of it's true. She's got something wrong with her, from a mental point of view. 2, she believes it, but she's skewing it in a way because of some challenges she's having, or there's something real to it, and that's a really hard one to deal with. And as I think you said before, Dave, like I do believe that there's some aspects to her story that are true. I think that for example, I don't know if you may have heard it, but her experience in the hospital where she almost died, and she basically woke up and saw an elderly woman standing next to her doorway, and I believe she talked to her or something, and then the woman vanished, and she basically said, well, the woman next door is coding, and they're like, no, she's not, and then the coding happened, right? So it was and I think that story is possibly true, but there's so much of it that's very, very challenging to accept, and there's so many kind of holes in it, and there's so many questions that haven't been answered, and there's so many people that she's blocked for asking certain questions, and then there's the latest report by, I believe, Steve Cambrian, I think his name is,
Steve
and
Cambion.
by another Camden.
Cambion,
thank you. And another individual that both claim that they tracked down the landowner. And this guy isn't just the landowner. According to her original story, she was in a coffee shop. She met him. He struck a conversation with her and invited her back to his property that she went to. And that seems like a start of like a Mr. Ballin story that's going to go sideways, right? And so he goes onto her property. She did say that she told everyone where she was going. So in her defense, she did protect herself. But she goes, and he's the one that she claims dug the hole in the mountain, and the one that introduced her to the aliens. So this is a guy that's got to be somewhat aware. And according to these two individuals, they found him and they called him. And he basically said he has no idea who she is and hung up on them. I guess one of them, she talked to him for a little while, and then the other guy got hung up on. Because I'm guessing the guy's gotten more than one phone call. And so for that person to be completely divulging all knowledge of her, that really throws this whole story into a difficult position. So it's hard. I want to give her an opportunity. I hate judging people. Though I used to be very judgmental, I'm not anymore, or I try not to be. So I hate to judge people without significant evidence even. And so as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to back off and let this whole play thing out, play it out as nature allows it. But if I was betting on anything, let me tell you something, I wouldn't be betting Bitcoin, that's for sure.
The scary part about it is, Big Willy, is she has handlers who are pushing her to do this. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's a health problem, a mental health problem, whether she's had contact, whether there is something in that mountain that's extraterrestrial. I really don't know. But it's confusing. And her handlers, I think, have really mishandled her from day one. That's what you get when you get a bunch of people who think they know how the media works and social media works in order to try something like this. I mean, when you hear this story, what are you thinking?
I think initially I didn't know even, and now it's come out a little more about the handlers and stuff. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought initially we thought it was just her coming forth with the story, right? Or did we know that there was a team of handlers behind her?
In the beginning, the handlers she has now were not with her. They came later.
Okay, that was the part I wasn't positive on. Okay. So initially, if somebody came out when I first heard about this, if it had just been her with this situation, I don't think I'm opposed to it. I mean, I think we all know people at times that maybe aren't as in the limelight as she is right now that have come out and said that something's going to happen. I agree with John's position on this in the sense that I think that if something's like this is going to happen, maybe take the approach of don't tell everybody about the big deal before it happens. Maybe just let it happen and then kind of record it from there. I don't know that she has necessarily ill will to the community, but this is kind of the classic thing that's been coined for a while with the community is that it's all talk and no show. So I feel that maybe if she'd gone more that approach, that's what I personally would have done. Again, I know it puts information out there, and there are people who are coming to it because of this, but I don't know that it's the right reasons, just like with the NASA stuff. So we shall see. I think time tells. It works all the truth out at the end, is my opinion.
Let's bring...
Let me add one thing real quick. She has set a significant gate for herself, because by establishing this event, let's face it, if this event actually comes to pass, this is a make or break. Right.
100%.
So the fact that she is putting that challenge out in front of her and making such a big deal about it, that could basically prove that she's been lying. That's kind of a weird thing for someone to do if they know they're not telling the truth. You know?
Did she move the date though? Am I wrong on that? Wasn't there an original date, and then they were like, "Whoa, hang on a second, we gotta."
There was a lot of miscommunication. Some people thought that it was going to happen like the week after the press conference. And that evidently wasn't her intention. I believe that there was one date movement or so forth, but it's never been like, immediate, in my opinion. It's always been kind of out there. And then one more thing we should add is that her position in the government, she actually has a background in manipulating. Well, I shouldn't say manipulating, in information control and information. Massaging, should we call it?
Massaging. That's very nice. Nicole, I got a special question for you about Anjali that I want to ask. So I'm going to get you to go last. Paranormal Chop Shop's Dave Scott Jr. When you look at this whole Anjali thing, do you think this is a black eye to the UFO community if this fails or does not happen in 2021 the way she claims it is going to happen?
I don't know a whole lot about her, but it's not going to be a black eye if it doesn't. It's not going to be too bad anyway. The way I look at it, I'm one of those guys that anything that does happen is a good thing. If something comes out of this for the UFO community, but I'm not sure if it'll give them a black eye or not.
Well, that's the interesting part. Nicole, I want to bring you in here because as a fellow experiencer, we are always very sensitive to anybody who comes out claiming they're the ones. They're the big show. They're the big kid on campus. They're the ones going to lead us to the promised land of the aliens. And here we are. If this doesn't go through, whether it's the entire event or whether she gets up into that mountain and there is nothing, not a zero to do about extraterrestrials there, does this hurt the stories of the experiencers out there, the real experiencers who have had ET contact, who have had some very heinous things done, the people who, like yourself, you go out to look for UFOs, you come into your house, your dog is scared to death, and you have a pile of rocks from the area sitting on your desktop.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is what we're dealing with here.
Where to start? Firstly, I think anytime experiencers come forward, it takes a certain amount of bravery, to do it on any sort of platform. So I applaud that. And secondly, I kind of think that since the days of Adamski coming forward, there's always been that split line of what's the truth? Is there going to be follow through? Can they really do what they say they can do? And we've seen experiencers toe that line all throughout our community, whether it's people that can call in craft or just people who have seen multiple craft. Like we've had a history of going, this is how things are. It can't be this, whether it was, way back in the day, if you saw one craft, that was it. If you saw multiple craft, nobody believed you, and then my mind goes to if there's parts of somebody's story that kind of take me aback, like, have I heard this before? Or does this knock my socks off? And one part of Anjali's story that kind of stuck with me was this mountain scenario, and we've all been talking about like whose land it is, the guy that dug the tunnel, in other conversations, we've wondered if this tunnel mountain was some sort of portal. So that's what kind of stuck with me, this mountain thing. And so I did dig kind of a blanket search, and I have found other scenarios from experiencers where they talk about being taken to a mountain or being taken inside a cave system. So it's not really too far of a stretch in experiencer world. I just think a lot of times we don't do our history checks enough to find out if this has been mentioned before, if it's being kind of tugged and manipulated into a new story, or if this is a scenario that really happens. Like we know of mountain hotspots like Mount Shasta. So it all comes down to, is it going to work when she takes people there? And there's another scenario with that. We all know there's people that will like sign up and jump into a CE5 circle. And then the first time out, nothing ever happens. So of course, for the rest of known time, they're like, CE5 doesn't work. Nothing works. Doesn't work. It doesn't work. Stupid. So we might be up against something like that. I wish it didn't have to be, I'll take you there once. I wish it was, we're going to go there and we're going to beat this mountain like a dead horse. Like, we're going to do it till we give up, like, a scenario like that. Because I know a lot of times in this community, it's never a one and done kind of scenario. Like,
yeah.
Just
Nicole, I want to expand on that with you for a second, because I look at the people who have come out. Whether it's Chris Bledsoe, whether it's Samantha Mowat, whether it's people in our chat room, whether it's you, whether it's me, or any of us who have had some very frightening experiences with extraterrestrials and UFOs, being followed by UFOs in your car, missing time. If this doesn't go through, and the public, once again, has an entire area to point their finger and laugh at that person, it's not Anjali they're laughing at. It's the entire experiential community and the UFO community, where all these people from the outside looking in will say, look at these wingnuts, these tinfoil hat wearing wingnuts, BSing about aliens. And that has a real big chance of regressing this entire field. I mean, look, some people say, Dave, you're being a drama queen. It's not going to be that bad. The public doesn't care. All it takes is one camera. All it takes is one mainstream media camera by one of her handlers who tells a local radio or television station, hey, come with us. We're going to go find some aliens here in this cave. That's all it takes. And boom, there you go. That's the danger and the hurt that I see happening through all this. And it's not just a little microcosm of the entire event. This could be the potential outcome and likely outcome of what we're going to see. We got 4.5 minutes.
Yeah, I think, once again, though, back to the point of what you were saying, Nicole, is that it's weird, and correct me if I'm wrong in this. She did give an exact, like, this is a one-time shot, right? This isn't something where we're saying, hey, we're going to experience this like Skinwalker.
Well, it's going to be a trip.
It's
going to be a trip, so it might be a multi-day adventure because there is a hike involved. And it's going to be a camping trip. Once again, the beginning of a Mr. Baller story. But one thing I will say in her favor, and I have to bring this up in fairness, is that she's stated more than once that there will be multiple cameras and other data collection equipment brought with them. And she plans to cover all of it by multiple angles and plans to publish all of it immediately. So she's really putting her chips on the table.
Okay, so I've heard that they're going to have multiple cameras, but what I haven't heard anybody discuss is if this is in the realm of some sort of consciousness trip, is there going to be body brain sensors? Like if they reach a point in this trip and they traverse into a wormhole, like how are we going to know that? I mean, there still needs to be more.
The cameras will go dark.
But I mean, that's where this goes into experiencer land. If we're talking about consciousness, and if this is like a created collective experience that is going to happen here, then it's kind of no holds bars. I mean, I kind of feel like it's that movie Contact, except we haven't built her some cool machine to fall through, you know? Like,
no, it could just be 6 people standing there looking like vegetables, and they're having some out-of-body experience, right? And you get all this film of these people just standing there like this, you know?
Right.
Wouldn't go over well.
Well, would we say, though, I'm sorry, go ahead.
This is where other parts of other experiencers' stories come into play. That are maybe not so well talked about. Like everybody talks about portals, and there's people that believe like Sedona is a portal, whether it's an entrance or an exit, nobody knows. You know, this could be a scenario like that. Is there an entrance? Is it an exit? Is it something that you can perceive at certain times? Does it come? Does it go? Is it always there? Like, does it always come from the same spot or go to the same place? We don't know.
Do you think the long-term effects... Well, I'm sorry, Dave. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Please, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, do you think the long-term effects of this would be that detrimental, even with all the other evidence that has, to be fair, come out in support of UAPs or possible alien life forms of this year? I mean, will it be that big of a black stain? I agree we don't need any more, but... in the grand scheme of things, in 10 years, how will we look at it, I guess? Is that going to be the biggest thing ever, or we're not going to be talking about it, right?
I think that depends on us. Like, I think, in my head, the worst case scenario is going to be everybody goes, nothing happens, no data able to be collected, it's just bunk. At the very best, I think... well, you know, I mean, everything goes like she says, and somebody takes an amazing trip. But I think what it's going to really point out is a hole in what we're really dealing with. Like, if people think we're going to go to that mountain and we're going to find ETs that have flown here from somewhere else, like, that's the paradigm that's shifting here. Like, right. The Jacques Vallée extension of the ET theory is now what we're trying to like come to terms with now. You know, we've all heard this. It's something more than ET.
Which he's actually gone a little bit back on, by the way. In his interview about the Trinity thing, he said, I have to, I don't remember how he phrased it, but I have to eat my words a little bit. There is a more physical element to this than I used to think.
I don't know if it's what he used to think, but there is a physical element to it. It's not.
I was impressed that he said that, though. Like, he actually called it out himself.
Well, on that note, I'm going to take us out to the break here, everyone, because it is that time once again. When we come back from the break, let's get controversial. Let's do it. I'm calling my shot right now. I'm using the word aliens. Nicole Sakach, Big Willy Townsend, John Hudson, and Dave Scott Jr., along with yours truly, here on Spaced Out Radio. Oh, God, 'tis the season for weirdness, isn't it? We'll be back with Hour 2 of Spaced Out Radio's Roundtable next. You're brilliant. You're fucking brilliant.
Are we gonna sing Mr. Cowley a duet?
When he gets here. When he gets here.
Oh, man.
Okay, so my daughter today brings home this new boy. He comes in for dinner, and I love playing this up. I do. Oh, no. And my daughter just laughs. John, you'll get there one day. You will. Big Willy, you will too. It's a lot of fun. So as many of you know, I love really brutally hot sauce. So we're having rice and chicken and cauliflower for dinner, real nice dinner, and I'm eating away, and I got my headphones in, and I'm listening to Chop Shop, and while I'm eating, and my daughter arrives home, and she goes and grabs a plate. This boy comes and grabs a plate. I said, "Hey, you may need some dressing for your rice."
You're an evil man, Dave.
So I pushed over my really brutally hot
You're an evil
Vietnamese
man.
hot sauce. I
The
can't.
Vietnamese stuff.
I don't even know what it's called because
I need a Scoville unit.
because I can't. I don't even know what it's called because I can't read the language.
Probably not legal.
Okay, so the only thing I know about this hot sauce, when my dad got it for me for my birthday, he walked into the Vietnamese restaurant, and the gentleman, all the gentleman would say in his broken English is, "This'll fix him. This'll fix him." Right? So
Broad.
yeah. So anyways, this kid goes and literally splashes his entire rice with it. And I'm sitting there. Oh, you may want to put a little more on there, right? You need to get the flavor in. So he does. Right?
You know, karma happens, Dave.
The
You gotta be careful.
poor kid is just friggin' burning. Everybody at our table is just smirking, and I'm just sitting there looking at him with a big smile. It's good, isn't it? Yeah, it's good. Right? Oh, I was so proud of myself.
Oh, I'm the mother of a son, Dave. I'm going to have to teach him that one. Be like, never take the hot sauce from a dad on a date. Don't do it.
Oh man.
Oh yeah.
I'm the dad of 3 daughters. I say feed them all the hot sauce you can, Dave.
Thank you. Thank you.
Although I gotta say, points for the guy that actually coming over for dinner.
We
You
did-
know,
we-
that's not an easy thing to do.
We
so.
did give him a glass of milk to calm it down, and a paper towel to blow his nose.
You know he's probably on the phone with his mom right now
That's
going,
fine.
Mom, it's still burning.
No, he's like 18, 19 years old.
That doesn't matter.
He's
still
fine.
calling your mom.
His taste buds will grow back.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But that's how you know
We got
it's good.
we got another minute or so, Dave. I'm gonna go throw the dog.
Yeah,
in.
we have a couple minutes. Hey, Willie, I'm going to get you to turn your microphone up.
Oh, yeah.
Just a smidgen, if you don't mind.
Oh, actually bring it up for you. I always thought it was too loud. All right, I'll bring it
No.
up a little bit. All right, you tell me. Is this a little better for you?
Keep going.
We're coming in.
Keep going. Keep going.
All right. What's happening, guys?
Crank the fucker. Let's go. Here.
Still going?
There you go.
All right. Wow, I gotta turn this back down. Hang on.
Yeah.
All
we
the
go.
guys with your
I'm
I'm starting to feel a little inadequate with my microphone here, folks. You know, I mean,
smooth radio voices.
even Dave Jr.'s got his.
I know.
You know, Will, I got to be honest. That was like
Hello,
one of
everybody.
my first fears about doing a show with you. I was like, oh crap, I'm gonna sound like hell now.
No. Nobody. No.
He sounds so good that it does.
He does. He sounds so
it's
good.
a-
It's like I'm gonna have to go to a voice coach.
No, that's what we joke all the time. I say I get it from I tease. You guys know Jess Rogue? Anybody know the Rogie or anything like that?
Yeah.
Tease all the time. As I said, like I get the voice lesson from her. I'm just kidding though, but she has. I mean, there's so many people out there. Chris Holm, he's in the chat tonight. I mean, I think he has a phenomenal voice.
He's got a
Forgot to tell
beautiful
him that
voice.
tonight.
He's
He
got
really
a beautiful
does.
voice. Yes, he does.
Yep.
You could do like commercials and stuff, man. Like seriously, you should look into like voice voice work.
That's actually a very smart.
You really should. You really should. Because
Or
it's not
what is
super
it?
hard to get into, and it's a lot of stuff you can do remotely, and some of it pays pretty well, and you know it's like you can do it in your slippers, So I mean, it's
Better than what I was doing for a while. That's for sure.
Stuff where you have to whisper everything.
yeah. Oh yeah, I mean you could do radio announcement stuff, but you could even do like TV commercials and so forth. I mean like about butter and stuff like that.
I like Guitar Slinger here. Big Willie, my girl just said, "Who's the guy with the seductive voice?" WTF, stepping on my game.
Oh
Well,
man. Hey, I'm
yeah.
taken. So
Yeah.
I'm not free For anybody out there, I'm sorry, Dave.
He's not free, but $10 will move a lot of bricks, man. $10 will move a lot of bricks.
You're like the Southern Barry White, man. It's crazy.
A Southern I'm in almost Canada. I love in Michigan. We have what are
that's true. That's true.
They talk about being down south boys, kind of. And I'm like, guys, you're practically Canadians. Like, what are we doing here? This is
good point. Well, so for the Canadians, you're Southern, you know.
All right, guys.
It's weird, right?
26 seconds. I want to say a big thank you to Paulo, Greg, Cat Chaser, Jose, Joey, Ann, and Swampy for the super chats. It is a fantastic way to support what we do on this nightly basis. Hi, Davey. How you doing? And a big thank you to all the veterans out there tuning us in. You always have a safe home in our chat room. Hi, Peter Steins. And get your horns up. Here comes Mr. Bumblefoot. Let's rock this thing.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter @Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Just go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Apocalypse Synopsis. Holy cow, I got it. I'm not even saying it twice. It scares me. As the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. Check out our swag. Read up on Captain Shirky Poo's Newswire. And rock out to Bumblefoot. On Twitter, you can follow us at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on with the round table tonight as we have the lovely Nicole Sakach, excellent researcher and author of everything UFOs. We have Big Willy Townsend, who will be co-hosting the new After Hours show coming in December here on the weekends of Spaced Out Radio right after Lynn Wallington, and you only get it on YouTube and Twitch for now. And we have John Hudson from the UFO Report and After Hours, and of course my twin, my brother, Dave Scott Jr. How you all doing? It's good to have you all back, and we're going to get into another topic here because, you know, it seems like in the field of ufology, each time we take 2 steps forward, we take 2.5 steps back. The latest that has been causing a lot of controversy this month, ever since it was released, was Demi Lovato. Now, Demi is relatively new to the publicity era of ufology. However, they claim that they have been an experiencer for their entire life. And then she goes on an Australian radio show, one of the top Australian radio shows, and she goes on there and says, we're no longer allowed to call aliens aliens because the word aliens is offensive to aliens. She calls them extraterrestrials. Now, Dave Scott Jr., we're going to kick off with you on this one. Where do you stand with this nonsense?
When an alien complains about it, then we can start calling them by what they want to be called. But yeah, I guys, I just don't know on this one. I want to hear what Big Willy has to say about this one, Dave, because I really don't know.
All right, Big Willy.
Oh, geez. Well, I tell you what, Dave, I appreciate this being our first time on here. You bring us on for the most controversial subject that seems to be out there right now. You're like, come on down, guys, give your opinion. I think for, man, how do you say this in the right way? In today's society, if someone, and we know they're uncomfortable with something, sure, don't push it. But you bring up a great point there, Dave Scott Jr., which is we don't really know. And I think it's, to me, now this is my own humble opinion on this, I don't know that we get to project how we interact in our species, our our species, essentially, and apply the issues that we have to those of other planets or throughout the solar system. Those are our problems here right now. I know some have hit on the fact that it can be derogatory depending on the area you live in. I think, personally, it's a pretty, I don't want to use the word universal, but on this planet, it's universal as to what it stands for. And I think kind of I am in the stance that until we are told something else, then it's just purely ignorance, and nobody should, there's a difference between stupidity and ignorance, and I think that right now, we're just ignorant on it because we don't know. And unless an experiencer has been said or been told, refer to me as this, I don't know, guys. I mean, to me, I don't want to take away from it, but I think we have bigger issues at hand, and I don't mean that in a rude way, but there are maybe some more important things at hand than the terminology being brought up. That seems more like get us into that government ploy kind of game again, where, you know, with the Freedom of Information Act, it's got to be the exact verbiage that's used. So for me, to sum it up, I think use whatever term you're comfortable with, but I don't think we get to tell everybody what term they can and cannot use if it is not something that's indeed egregious terminology to somebody else. So that'd be my 2 cents.
Look, I mean, I read a lot of the comments that Demi Lovato, that people were posting about Demi Lovato when this came out. And some of them were incredibly insensitive, talking about her mental health, making fun of her mental health, making fun of her sexuality, making fun of how she has a press conference for every time she has a new brew of coffee. Okay, I mean, this young lady, we have no idea what she has gone through in her life. And being a child's star, I mean, you hear the nightmares of what children's stars go through. And a lot of them don't have a proper upbringing because of the pressure of being that child star. And add social media to it and the ruthlessness of social media, it just makes things all the uglier. And I don't think that a lot of the comments that she or they received over that is actually fair. John, I want to get your opinion on it because I know that in California the word alien means something completely derogatory.
It does, and I should point out, because I was just looking this up, that in April, the White House has ordered all immigration enforcement agencies to stop using the word alien or illegal alien because of its derogatory background. And so this is actually, something that's being talked about, especially, in schools and stuff, because this stuff always comes up. Teachers bring up big changes like this and so forth. And so now a lot of people are being informed that alien is a, derogatory term. And the thing is that, I mean, if I had complete control of the situation, I would want to leave it up to them, right? Because I mean, because in my opinion, labels are labels. But I have to admit, me personally, I wouldn't want to be called an alien, right? I would consider the term alien derogatory if it was said to me, because to me, what an alien says is you're not welcomed here. You're not from here. You're not like us. You're not part of us. You have nothing to do with us. And you've basically come in from and you're not welcomed. I mean, that's what it says to me, is you're not welcome.
See, and I look at it from a completely different point of view, John, and I respect yours. But where I grew up, okay, I grew up in an area where color means nothing. There's where I grew up, there's a heavy East Indian community now called the Southeast Asian, all right? And, they were all a part of us. We tried to, to try to make them blend with us, and their community added much strength to what we needed in our town. And it's been fantastic. It's not just about, anything trying to do with racism or anything like that, because that's the way the term is. When I think of the word alien, I don't think of people, because I don't know what it's like to grow up in that area of people coming across the border from Mexico or El Salvador or Guatemala or wherever to try and get a better life in the United States or even make their way up to Canada, where I am. I don't know what that's like, and I'm very ignorant by that. And that being said, when I think of the term alien, never once have I ever thought about using it towards people. And that's where I get confused by this in an argument, because I do not agree that that if Mr. Zeta Reticuli has come down here as an alien gray coming down, I look at it as the term that they're new here, that they're from an alien planet, that they're from space or wherever they may be, right? I don't know if I'm explaining myself correctly here or not. I just have never looked at that as a term towards people, because people are people.
And that's where I say a little bit, and I could be wrong in this again. I always say these are my own humble opinions. They don't apply to anybody else. This is how I live my life. I still feel like this again, everything we're discussing here is a relative to human issue here on Earth and with our borders. And that's where I have a little bit of a take back, and I agree with you, John, like you're saying. If you know that someone has expressed that it's a derogatory term and you know it is, then that's a difference. I don't know that we get to apply this to all of them in whatever situation they're in. I don't know that that is fair of us necessarily. I think until someone speaks for themselves, we shouldn't make assumptions and say this is the way it is.
Okay.
We could say something like perhaps, but I don't think we get to say this is how it is.
I don't normally ask questions or take questions from the audience during the roundtable, but this one is quite specific. And Nicole, I want to hear your opinion. Apollo 11 says, well, what about gray, Nordic, etc.? Are they offensive? Would they want to be called that? I mean, the Nordics, if you look at the Nordics, now you are taking the people of Scandinavia and proclaiming them to be extraterrestrials, if you want to take it that far. Nicole.
Wow, I got lots of little notes here. I think first and foremost, what I want to fall back on is many experiencers that once they come to terms with speaking to who they're in contact with, or once they're comfortable with being in the field, they do often ask, are you ET or are you an alien? And surprisingly enough, none of them say yes. They're not like, yep, I'm an alien. It's always like, no, not exactly. Or I can be an alien if you want me to be. Or it's also this play on a scenario, which my UFO boss is really good at, like rattling off names along with these scenarios. But there's also, where was I going with this? To where it's the play on this phenomenon uses your culture and your own life experience. So to kind of kick it back to Demi Lovato and what they are experiencing, like, to me, that's not surprising that what she's getting back from the field revolves around their world in that way. Where it is it politically correct to talk, to specifically relate somebody to gender? And I kind of find that interesting, because when I've spoken with a lot of channelers in this field, they often don't channel one being. It's a collective. So if you're speaking to somebody in terms of a collective, then those gender assigned roles and things like that tend to fall away, And I really do like the experiencers that come through and say, they're not in contact with an ET, that it's come to them as an ET before, but it has also changed. It's changed to a light being. It has changed and just been an orb, or often it's just the downloaded communication talk while they're in the field. So, I mean, if we're talking about an extraterrestrial biological entity, that's one thing. If we're talking about a pan-dimensional spiritual like being, then that's something else as well. So I think what we're witnessing with Demi Lovato is this excellent interpretation of an experiencer having their experience. It's going to be kind of tailored to her. You know, we're going to see what she goes through. And if there's any little snippets that, you know, coincide with anybody else's experiences, then that's when it's going to, you know, be shocking, I think.
But I don't think people are questioning her experiences. There are a great amount who are, but I really do believe, Nicole, that it comes down to this is Demi Lovato being Demi Lovato again. Okay, I mean, previous to this, there was the complaint about yogurt that went through the media, through her. I mean, like I said, this is a young lady who has to have a press conference for everything. And her 114 million subscribers and followers on social media eat it right up. They eat it right up. And I don't know if that is a positive effect on the UFO community. And when you're new to this community, to all of a sudden be, you know, making it political, if we could say that, on this term, all right, I don't know if that's healthy. I don't know if that helps the community or helps at anything. Look, they can be whoever they want to be. Don't care. My daughter is in that community. All right. I am very proud of my daughter. I don't question her ethics. I don't question her anything. I do relish her courage. Okay. And I think the world of my daughter about that.
And see, I think this is a moment where our little UFO community is a microcosm for the world at large. I think, generally speaking, this might not be important to us in the here and now, but I'm a big proponent that my ufology isn't for me. My ufology is for the next generation and to make it easier for them to come forward and address these issues. So I think maybe it's that first like paving stone of, you know, we might not think that this is in the here and now or important, or it shouldn't be a stance that's taken, but my grandkids might appreciate it. So can't count that out.
John.
No. I think I love all these different perspectives, and I think it's really interesting. And yeah, unfortunately, if Demi Lovato has a history of picking up these items and using them as some sort of a rallying cry to entertain her mass, and people are used to that, then I could see them being more suspicious of what she said. And the other problem is my understanding is the shows she was on in Australia, these are big time, like, you know, not shock jock necessarily, but big time radio people. And
yes.
Part of me kind of wonders if they set her up, you know, if they walked her into this because they wanted something controversial, you know, versus her coming out and saying it on her own. I'd be curious to listen to the broadcast, but you know, I think that, you know, ultimately, you know, this is anytime you have a global topic that has personal intense interest by every local community, you're going to have this challenge because we haven't normalized everything on this planet yet. We still have so many different walks of life, and everyone interprets things differently, and everyone has different points of view on things. And so, you know, to me, I would almost look at this as an opportunity to not really focus necessarily on the alien term, but focus on how we all deal with it, and how we all discuss it, and how we all mitigate the risks of it, because this isn't going to be the first time. This isn't going to be the last time. There's going to be many, many, many more issues like this that come up. And we need to get good at dealing with it, because right now we're not.
Can I add one thing to that, though, really quick? It's just, I guess in my mind, and because, Nicole, you brought up a great point, thinking about the past different encounters that experiences have had. And one of the things that seems to come up time and time again is we've had it both ways, where there seems to be a gender neutral spectrum. There's been those that have given a clear spectrum on the gender, and the ones that, let's say the grays, for instance, that are very almost sometimes robotic in their behaviors. Not in all cases, but in most. Do these terms, I still come back to it. I don't mean to keep pounding the table on that, but I don't know that the way we function in our consciousness, does it even apply to how they react and think on things? And that's where it's, again, I can't help bring it up. It seems to be an us problem, and we're trying to make it a them problem.
We also have a society, as we have about 3 minutes to go, that is going out of their way to look for things that are going to offend them. All right.
A little bit.
You know, I mean, it doesn't matter whether, like, I'm not a Dave Chappelle fan. Okay. But this cancel culture, I'm offended culture is getting dangerous, and they're getting pushy. And I, it doesn't matter whether it's Dave Chappelle or Demi Lovato about the aliens or whether or not we should call them aliens or Nordics or Greys, or maybe we just need to call them by alphabet letters. I don't know. Okay, I don't know. But when you look on social media on an everyday basis, we see people searching for ways to be offended. I had it happen in my own chat room last night, where I have a zero tolerance for politics talk in the chat room. Sometimes, as I've stated before, politics is going to come up in our topics of discussion because of it. And this person tried to give that offended, aha, caught you moment. Right? Well, that's not the way it works. We want to snap to be offended instead of taking our brains and thinking about the entire picture rather than just that singular moment. Nicole, you're wanting to talk.
Let's look at it this way for a second. Instead, I mean, in my UFO world and my real world, I hear this all the time. Like you just said, it's like we're looking for excuses to be offended. And that sinks in with me a lot, but I don't know if it's necessarily reflective of what I see when I look around and I talk to people in UFOs or paranormal or the real world. I don't see a bunch of people running around like, like they're all puffed up, like ready to be offended. What I do see is people who were very silent for very, very, very long, where they didn't speak up. They turned their head, brushed things off, let it go, sucked it up, did whatever they had to do, and were offended at the same time. So I do know that we have raised our children to call out injustice and not just sit on the sidelines and be silently acceptable of what other people say or what grandpa says that's embarrassing. No, it's up to us to toe that line, whether it's hard or not. And often it's hard to speak up and say, that offends me.
Very true.
Totally agreed.
Very true. And that's a good way to end that segment, Nicole. Way to hammer it home. Great job. Great job on that. Our panel tonight, we have Nicole Sakach, author, researcher. We have from the UFO Report on Spaced Out Radio, the fedora-wearing John Hudson, who will in December be hosting the After Hours Party with Big Willy Townsend, who is also here, and my younger brother, Dave Scott Jr. from the Paranormal Chop Shop. When we come back, crash retrievals. Are they out there? Have the aliens crashed their craft on Earth? All right, we're clear.
I just want to say, too, I think Nicole deserves some credit for being the only one of us that has any Halloween stuff behind her. So,
right.
So,
I will be
right
right
get some
back.
credit for that.
That's my fun pumpkin. I love it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you really did a face.
Nice. Nice.
There's like a floating triangle, a circle.
And that's a big pumpkin.
That is a big pumpkin.
That's a big pumpkin. I know my
John,
daughter was.
What you said about the aliens and the illegal aliens, I've never thought of it like that, bro. And I've actually said out of my own mouth, like if somebody says, "Oh, the guy looks like an alien," I would, because I'm in Fresno. I'm in Fresno. I'm right here.
Right.
So I would say, "You mean an alien or illegal alien?" That's what I would.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
And that's horrible. You shouldn't say that. I've never got of it though. I'm glad you brought that up.
You're either a resident alien or an illegal alien. That's like.
Yep. And the thing is that I was amazed, but I mean, the White House just came out, and it's now against the rules for anyone in the immigration department to refer to anyone as an alien or an illegal alien. They're not allowed to use it anymore. Why would they do that?
That's fine, but we're not talking people here.
Dehumanizing. That's why that's it in a nutshell. Anytime you put that kind of label on a human being, it's dehumanizing. Whether it's the illegal alien or resident alien, we're not. We're humans.
I used to have a problem with it, especially when it was the guys coming from Mexico, because they would say, "Oh, that's an illegal alien," and I would tell them, "Yeah, try to pick one town in California that's not Spanish named."
Yeah,
they were residents first.
Yeah,
nothing changed.
Not to mention how much they've added to our culture, and not to mention the food. Oh my God, the food is amazing.
I know. Can't you wait for like the space people food? Like,
seriously, I'm waiting for I want the music and I want the food. Those are two things I'm really looking forward to. I really am.
But guys, think about the stories. I've heard a lot of things here tonight. And I and maybe I'm looking at it from an outside perspective here, so I do apologize if I am, okay? But a lot of what I've heard tonight is when it comes to the word alien, is we're trying to say it dehumanizes people. We're not talking about people here. That is one of the big things that I think the misconception. I don't believe that any human being should be called an alien, okay? I really do not. But, I mean, with the star people or whatever hipster name that has come up recently about them, okay, I really do believe that the terminology, in the way that Demi Lovato means it, she is trying to speak for the aliens themselves, not the human illegal aliens or documented aliens.
No.
But Dave, what happens after they come here? They've been hanging out for a while. They start watching TV, and they're like, "Hey, wait a second! Why are you calling us aliens? Yeah, I've seen how you guys treat them. You know, don't you think they're going to notice? You know,
they're not here, John. They're not here.
Huh?
They're not.
I don't know, Dave.
That's argumentable right there.
You tell me.
There's plenty of them that say they've been here all along. We're the visitors.
That's true.
And to be fair, guys, wouldn't we say too that first of all, let me go back to the food thing really quick, because first of all, the two stories that I specifically remember about food being shared were not necessarily pleasant whatsoever. I believe you referred to it as a piece of cardboard. But going into this,
those pancakes were supposed to be just fine.
Flatter than a board. I'll tell you what. But what I would say is, do you not think that, for experiences like, say, our Keith Andrews and your position on him, neither here nor there, but he's seen some stuff, and others have seen things of how they look at humans in regard to us. I don't know that we're getting the same courtesy that we're extending out. And so that would be the only thing I would say, is that, again, I don't know that it would really, I don't want to say that we're not weak-minded, but I don't know that it's going to hurt their feelings as much as we might think it would, because if I see something about us being frail human beings who only live for we could be the fruit flies of the universe for all we know. We think we live 70 years.
We can also set an example and we can also show them a better way to look at things and a better way to live and a better way to communicate with other planets. We don't always have to be followers.
Now we're
we
talking
can be leaders
Star
in
Trek.
something.
Okay, guys,
Right?
guys, hold on. Thank you to G West, Thomas Fessler, Apollo, Greg, Cat Chaser, Jose, Joey, Ann, and Swampy for the amazing super chats. It's a great way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. Here we go with the show. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate it. Want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire, as well as check out our swag. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with the Roundtable. We have Big Willy Townsend from the UFO Garage and soon to be Spaced Out Radio as well, as he starts a brand new show called the After Hours with John Hudson as his co-host and Gemma Jade. We really do appreciate that. John Hudson is here as well from the UFO Report and After Hours. We have the stunning and talented Nicole Sakach, author, researcher extraordinaire, and my nemesis, Dave Scott Jr. Thank you, Halloween 2021. We really do appreciate all of you being here tonight. We're going to get into crash retrievals here. And Nicole, we're going to start with you on this one because one of the hot button topics that has opened up in the scientific aspect of ufology over the last month is, do we have crash retrievals? And where are they? Luis Elizondo has spoken a lot about this, as well as other big names from the scientific community, that, you know, that the government of the United States is withholding crash retrieval and metamaterials. I want you to take us down this road.
Well, I think the majority of us out there, even the noobs, automatically go to Roswell when you talk crash retrievals. That's our go-to. I think through all the decades of drama and hard work by awesome researchers like Stanton Friedman and Kevin Randall and Don Schmidt, like, we've really hammered Roswell home. So I don't want to say open and closed, but we don't really need to touch on that more. There are other crash retrieval cases that are spinning out there that people like to talk about, Cape Girardeau being one of them, Aztec, Aurora, all great cases to look into. And then there's the seeding, gifting idea, you know, that there are crash retrievals, not only in our country, but other superpower countries. And then there's the case like Trinity, which is a buzz case right now, you know, where there were ejected projectiles, which we hear about often, which is arguable and testable, and we like to throw it around. And then we get into the murky area of like the Wilson documents, where Eric Davis has supposedly spoken with those deep in the bowels of government who are need to know or are not need to know and can't find out more. They've briefed Congress or members of Congress. And then there's the stories that spin out from there. Like, yes, we do have crash retrievable materials. We can't really get it to work. We don't know what it is. We've tested this, haven't gotten anywhere. We've shelved it for decades. We've brought it back out. This is where the Bob Lazar scenario kind of enters in. Like, did he see 9 fully intact craft? Were they recovered archaeologically? Did they actually crash? Have we captured them? There's rumors that we have taken them down, for our own exploitation purposes. So this is the full grab bag of what do we have here? Do we have tech? Has it been manipulated? Has it been so black budget that it's actually operational and out there in the world? Is it something that can save humanity, like free energy, or a completely different power source? We got to get there.
John
Was
Hudson.
that some summation?
Yeah. So first, let me just say, I really wish people would stop saying free energy. Okay, there's no such thing as free energy. That's not how the universe works. There is going to be extremely dirt cheap energy, and that's the fair thing to say. But the whole idea of free energy, if you're getting free energy, it means you're stealing it from somewhere else. And let me tell you, if it's from another dimension, they're eventually going to come looking for it. But when it comes to crash retrievals, I completely agree with Nicole. This is all over the place. I was a lot more. I had a lot more challenge with the topic until this new Trinity case came up. This new Trinity case is kind of blowing my mind because that is a case where this little kid went on to the bloody ship and broke off a piece and took it. I mean, what was it? Wasn't it Neil deGrasse Tyson that was saying, like, can someone just steal an ashtray or something? Well, this kid did it 2 years before Roswell, right? I mean, that blows my mind. And the fact that the family basically gave Valet all the parts they had left. Unfortunately, they had used some of the parts in repairing some of the farm, and they got worn out, so they aren't good anymore. But the fact they're offering that's incredible support. I mean, in my opinion, especially because one of the gentlemen's still alive and was interviewed. That's really good support. Now, what I will say as far as other evidence that I believe exists is it is my firm belief that nitinol, which is the memory metal that Battelle came out with, that is as clear as you're ever going to get to a direct line of development from a recovery, because there are numerous reports of Battelle scientists who will say that they were given samples of things. They were not told where they were from. It was hinted to them that they were recovered German, they were recovered Russian, but it was never actually stipulated where they came from. And this is an organization that then invented titanium, and then it, based on titanium, invented nitinol. And it looks and behaves exactly like what we hear about the memory metal behaving like at Roswell. And so is it a slam dunk case? No, but it is a damn good one. And quite honestly, it might be the best one we ever get, because that's a pretty direct line as you get it. Now, outside of that, I have personal stories that I believe at least infer that certain optical technologies did come from a crash, that I have from a dear personal friend, and so I think that there's some evidence for fiber. And then I have another one that I unfortunately can't talk about right now, because I've agreed to give the story to another individual. But what I can say is that there is a manufacturing process that was employed in the F-35 craft that I now believe, based on some other research I've run into, was actually developed as a result of recovered material. But at this point, I can't talk about that any more than that. Just not because I've signed an NDA, just out of respect for this other researcher. And so for me, I think I have one really good case, one loosely inferred one, and potentially another good case that actually points a fairly clear path that some technology we're using today, we did at least learn how to make from a recovered incident. And so, I think that offers strong support. Yeah.
Big Willy, let's get your opinion.
All right. Well, first I got to say, this is not an area of expertise to me. This is simply more of an area that I find extremely fascinating. I just love researching all the lore of this. This is when you get into, like you said, everybody's going to start with Roswell. And that's kind of initially where I started, because that's where I feel like a lot of us start when we jump into this idea of getting into the topic, period, even though all of our journeys can begin in different areas. But for me, it actually went back a little bit farther to the Murray Island incident. And that, for me, was with the smoking gun, as it were, that, okay, there are definitely entities out here. And I know they may or may not have existed, allegedly, the Men in Black. And this is kind of where they first make their appearance. And then they have the events that transpire from this. And for anybody who, I don't want to bore everybody with all the facts, but if you dig into it, you should definitely look up the Murray Island incident and the alleged retrieval process that was there, and the process of it being transported back. I mean, there's just so much that goes into this. We had, I believe there was 4 of them flying back. And like I said, the plane goes down and the 2 people are flying it, they don't make it, and supposedly everything is lost in it. And I remember joking when the episode was like, those 2 guys definitely jumped out of the plane with a parachute and took out the ones on there, whatever they needed. But that's just my pure speculation on this. I think there has been, of course, a program in place. Because put yourself in, anybody in the chat right now, or anybody listening to this, what would you do if you're calling the shots on this right now, right? And you're responsible for containing this? What would you do? You would put together a team that's boots on the ground to get there before anybody else. That is your job. And I think sometimes we forget. We think as the United States, maybe you're in a different part of the country, but I'm in the United States here. We always think of our military always working together in peaceful harmony. And it's just not the case. And especially back then at the time, I want to say that the Air Force had not just formed or was just getting ready to form when this took place with the Murray Island incident. And there were a lot of people fighting for both technology and the income or the money that they give to them every year. So for me, I cannot personally point to anything that gives an exact, like, here's the smoking gun, but that is a big one for me. That started off where they had a lot of whoopses, as it were, that they left a lot of evidence behind. And if you want to throw up, I don't want to do this too much, but if we throw up the Bob Lazar story, where perhaps these things have been excavated over time, this isn't even something that's crashed here. Maybe it was already here. I always found it fascinating when he said those 13, I think was crafts that were, he believed to be excavated, 9 or 13, whatever it was. 9 of them, thank you. That has always fascinated me. And then you have the direct personal stories. Again, people get a little fired about the Bledsoe family, but if you're taking them at their word, they have flat out said this. Ryan Bledsoe himself, Chris Bledsoe Jr., has talked about the different metamaterials that have been brought to them to touch. And, if I take Ryan at his word, I mean, he said the reaction that he got from touching this and it going up his forearm, again, these are, we weren't there. We're relying on them to give us accurate information and speak the truth. But knowing who and what they are, to me, I'm kind of sold on it. I don't even think it's really a question in my mind at this point.
All right, let's get to Dave Jr. What do you think's happening there, Chop Shop? Man,
with that stuff, like, back to Bob Lazar again, I think for sure, like, he not remanufactured, what do they call that?
Reverse engineered.
Reverse engineered, thank you. Man, I just had that on my head, too. I don't. But yes, I think it stuff has been reverse engineered, because I don't like to call this a UFO, because I seen go over the top of our house really, really low, a stealth bomber. Now, I know it's a stealth bomber, so they don't make any noise, but it was traveling so slow, Dave, that there's no possible way that this thing couldn't have fell out of the air. Now, that's something I've seen with my own 2 eyes, and it was traveling so slow, I went in the house and got my daughter and told her, she was in the shower, and I said, hey, throw a towel on or something and come out and look at this and tell me what you think of it. She came outside, looked up at it, and said, Dad, I've never seen nothing like that. And I said, well, I think it's a stealth bomber because it's so big. But do you hear it? And she said no. and then went back in the house, and then I stood out there and watched that thing keep going, and then it finally started speeding up, and when it sped up, I'd say it was out of sight within 20 seconds. It wasn't fast like you hear people say about UFOs. It was out of sight within 20 seconds. The problem with that was I never seen a flame. I never heard anything, and
how big was it?
At least 200 yards underneath it, so I was not very far from this thing. It was very, very close over the top of my house.
How big was it, you think?
Oh, easily. The neighborhood is 4 blocks wide, and I remember thinking, because I'm in the center of the neighborhood, if this thing was to crash, it would take out 3 blocks. So it was at least 3 blocks wide. No tail, just like a flying V, but really, really big. Not, and I mean, that's the first thing I've ever seen. But I've seen that with my own 2 eyes.
And it was moving so slow. I mean, people can say slow, but you had enough time to go into your house, talk to your daughter, for her to turn off, complain, then finally agree, turn off the shower, put a towel on, come out, and it hasn't moved very much. I mean, that's
and the neighbor
that's not using
street,
normal propulsion.
No, and the neighbor across the street was watching it too, but he speaks just Spanish, so we couldn't converse about it too much. I can't say what we were saying to each other on the air, but we were.
I have heard account after account after account on triangle sightings, and that is a big indicator or similarity between, I would say, most of them is the very, very, very slow moving, slow. Like you said, it looks like it's gonna fall. And another kind of a classic one with that scenario is kind of the slow moving until it's gone. But a lot of people report like this strange, like weird turn to them. It's almost, Grant refers to it as the look at me like wow moment. Like, here I am. You got to have a good look. Like, oh, this is really weird. Oh, even weirder. Then gone. It's like to get your attention, to show you it sort of thing. So it's amazing. Or it's a stealth.
And did you see anything below it? Did you see any pipes, any panels, any rivets, any mechanics?
I could see where this thing's riveted together. That's how low it is. You can actually see the panels, in other words, where each panel's been riveted on.
Yeah.
Cut stuff out.
Oh, wow.
And then in the back, it's shaped like a bat. Like if you were to sew the butt of the bat, I guess, because I'm.
Yep.
Well, those three shapes right here, those were exhaust dumps, and I could see in there. I could see the square sheet metal. There was 3 dumps on each side, and just like that, and nothing. Okay. No sound or no noise.
And let me tell you something.
Fire.
The B2 is not silent.
Nope.
I don't think so either.
By any means. The B2 is not silent. Officially, we don't do silent planes. Officially, we don't. We don't do certainly not planes that don't make any noise at all. Right. I mean, dirigible type stuff. But F-22 can get damn quiet. But that's what's so confusing about your story, and this is what I find so confusing about so many stories, is that you get this one set of data from the person like you, and you're like, there's the chances that we've made that are so slim, and then you hear about this other part, the fact that you can see rivets and panels, and they're like, there's no way an alien would make it that badly, right? I mean,
that's why I say it's something that humans made.
Is that the manipulation, though, of your mind, trying to correlate something familiar with what you're seeing? You know what I mean?
Totally fair.
Or is it the phenomenon giving you, what a lot of people call is a screen image? It's you see what it's going to make you see according to what you need it to be, sort of scenario. So,
Yep. If you're done, man, I got one more quick story I can tell that might interest you guys. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with AJ Hartley. He was the guy that co-authored the books with, well, supposedly Tom DeLonge helped him write, but I have a lot of doubts that Tom put much into it. A.J. Hartley gave an interview once where he talked about the difficulty in writing the book because he'd written other books before about planes, but he'd never written a book about a plane that was essentially zero gravity. And he had no idea what it would feel like how it would perform, like what would the pilot experience. And what he claimed in this one interview is that through TTSA, he was given contact with an individual that he was allowed to talk to on the phone. This person was not allowed to tell him anything about the plane. He was only allowed to talk about what it felt like to fly it. That's the only thing he was allowed to talk to A.J. Hartley about. He was only allowed to talk about what it felt to fly the plane. And A.J. Hartley based all the impressions in those books on what it felt like to fly the converted UFO in the book based on what he learned from this pilot. And that, to me, is a very interesting story, because why did Christopher Mellon or someone else have the ability to get this guy a phone call with someone who's flown in a zero gravity craft before? Because it will feel drastically different. And I'll tell you, the description in the book, it's intense and it's detailed and it sounds very realistic.
I think too the work that I believe it's Jim Goodall, obviously, and
Yes.
if I say the wrong name here, I feel like I'm going to say the wrong name, but it's Michael Stratt. Michael Stratt's the one that's also done a massive amount of. I mean, they've done so much of the homework for us here, and Sonny, we've talked about this experience you brought up tonight here off the record. And I've told you, reach out to Jim Goodall, and I know you got him on Facebook. I'd run that drawing that you have by him, and the other stuff. Do you have the other drawing that you kind of got afterwards? I mean, I guess you talk about that another time if you'd like, but. He had some pretty interesting experiences after seeing that. That's for sure.
Yeah, and Goodall has said point blank that he's had multiple people that he trusts tell him that, yes, we don't just have a triangle, we have a triangle program, that there are multiple generations of the... Now, it's not to say that every triangle out there is ours, right? But it's just to say that some of them, Jim Goodall believes are ours. And I tend to trust Jim and new and improved Dave Scott. That's one hell of a story.
To add on to that a little bit, guys, Grant has done extensive work speaking with experiencers who have flown craft, and I know he has over 100 cases. And there's varying degrees. This goes down to like regular people like me, all the way through to like he's talked to fighter pilots who know what it feels like to fly our craft and who have also been initiated or shown how to fly ET craft. So it's an interesting scenario. That's when you start seeing similarities and differences, like when... I keep thinking, and he hasn't come forward publicly, but he is a fighter pilot, and he has dreams to where he's been trained to fly the UFO craft. And he said it's not anything like the human craft. You experience G-force and all that kind of stuff. You have things to maneuver. When you're flying the UFO, it's the consciously connected to the craft. Like you may feel like you're in place or in sync with it. Sometimes experiencers describe putting their hands on certain panels. Others describe no, it's all thought. Like you just enter in, you become one with the craft, you go.
All right. So, we're through 2 hours. We have another hour to go of the SOR Round Table here with a fantastic panel tonight. John Hudson, Nicole Sakach, Big Willy Townsend, and our big man, Dave Scott Jr. hanging on out tonight on the mighty SOR. And when we come back, let's turn it to the paranormal for a minute. Should teams be locking down locations in order to secure their ghostly adventures? When we come back. All right, we're clear.
Woo!
Yeah. You guys are killing it tonight.
That was a good round. I liked that.
I really want to try to get in touch with AJ Hartley over that, because I've only seen him talk about that in one interview, and that totally caught me off guard when he told that story, because I'm like, wait, they put you in touch with somebody, and they weren't allowed to tell you anything except for how it felt, and they were telling you how it felt to fly something that shouldn't even exist. I mean, that's
right.
like to me, like that's as close as you come to admitting that we have craft that run under that level of physics. I mean, I can't think of any other explanation for it, right? And it's I mean, it would have done them no good to pass Hartley an actor. I mean, you know, they could have just said, sorry, we don't know anyone, right? I mean, it's like, you know, or you could have reached out, you know, through like a Grant Cameron type opportunity and maybe gotten it from an experiencer, but that's not what he did. He got it from what he understood to be a U.S. pilot, a U.S. military pilot.
Excuse me for 1 sec, guys. I'm gonna go grab a jacket.
Another interesting account, and here I'll shamelessly plug my book while I do it here. In this book right here, Dave Scott's in this book giving his triangle account.
Hold on, that's the first I've ever heard of that. That is,
but Dave, I don't know if you remember when I was doing all these triangle interviews, Melinda Leslie's account, and she has actually an experiencer who has been on board, as she described it, alien or ET triangle craft, but then she did give an account where she was taken on board what she believes to be a man-made triangle, where she has recovered memories of being taken on board and seeing humans and Greys working together. So,
wow. Hey Dave, I need to cut out for a second and say goodnight to my daughter. I'll be right back.
Yeah, you go. We got lots of time. Nicole, this is the first time I'm hearing my story is in your book.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Is it really?
Yeah.
No, it's not. That's why I'm going to send you a free copy.
Are you autographing it?
Of course.
Good.
It might take a while if you want the trifecta autographed copy. That would be me, Grant, and William. But here, let me find your chapter.
Which triangle did you use?
All of your account that you gave in the interview.
Hey Dave, have you caught on to the sus thing yet?
No. Don't even know what it is.
So anytime you see in the chat where we've been saying lately, we'll do like kinda sus, right? We've been doing a cheers to one. That's what you see every once in a while. People pop up a cheers on there.
Oh, gotcha. Well, that works here.
So if you ever see somebody saying kinda sus, we're not doing it as in like a negative connotation to anybody on the show. We all take a drink of whatever we got going on for the night.
Wow. Hold on a second. Let me zoom that in.
82.
Oh, he almost had you.
Look at that. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I just gotta say hi to Spooky. Hey, Dave, do you always say Spooky Morales or Spooky It is Morales, right?
Spookles.
No, that's Spooky Morales.
Morales, okay. Apollo 11, heck yeah. Papa H, 509 Divine Pines. Look at all these guys. So cool to see everybody in here hanging outside.
I know. There's 155 people watching right now.
You know what, Dave? I've got to tell you. Oh, hang on. She's got another picture. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm just kind of flipping through. There's so many accounts in this book. You know, we didn't take the David Marler route with, you know, give you a full history of triangles. We spoke with the people.
Heck yeah.
Dave, how do you keep this?
How's your wig doing?
I will say if any of you guys don't want to read the Triangle book to hear Dave's account, you can find his interview on my YouTube channel.
Yeah, plug that. We need to get you some
full YouTube channel, full interview.
Mm-hmm.
It's good. He's wearing his Marvin the Martian hat in it. You'll love it.
What's your YouTube channel called?
It's just my name, Nicole Sakach. You can find me there. I'm real incognito.
And everybody should sign up for Paranormal Chop Shop and UFO Garage as well.
Yeah, I'll drop a link for UFO Garage here in a second. Is that okay to talk about who I'm talking to tomorrow too, Dave? Is that okay to mention that?
Yeah, of course it is, buddy.
Okay. I'm pretty excited, guys. He's first one he's been doing in a long time. Calvin Parker is feeling a lot better, and he's going to be doing an interview tomorrow with me over at the UFO Garage doing the Big Willy weekends, and I'm very excited for that one. I'm not going to lie.
And Nicole Sakach will be one of your guests.
Yes, she will.
Heck yeah, I'm excited. It's my only one on the books right now, so I'm like,
no, stop it.
No, it is. I'm looking forward to it. Like,
oh man, if I'd known that, I would have moved you up a little further.
I think it was me though. I anticipated more, but I've had to shelve some. So I didn't pencil you in. How about that? You were inked in. Everybody else was penciled in.
I don't even get the ink. I get the pencil. Hold on, guys. Big thank you to TMI, Mondag, Gaspar, G. West, Thomas, Apollo, Greg, Cat Chaser, Jose, Joey, Ann, and Swampy for the amazing super chats. It's a great way to support what we do. Also, take yourself shopping at our store on our website for the swag. Here we go.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, KPNL, and Revolution Radio. All of our archives are free. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. The only thing I ask for in return, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. What do you got for us, Clam? Apocalypse. There we go. Apocalypse, as I shouldn't have said it twice, as the Clam sets the password each and every night, right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to Bumblefoot, check out our swag, read up on Shirky Poo's Newswire, follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with the Roundtable. Our guest tonight, Big Willy Townsend from UFO Garage and Spaced Out Radio's new show, coming on the weekends after Lynn Wallington, the second week of December. His co-host is John Hudson from the UAP Report here on Spaced Out Radio. Nicole Sakach, researcher, author, who just told me that I'm in her latest book, and I appreciate that. You know, it's been out for 4 or 5 weeks, and I just find out that I'm actually in the book. And, of course, Dave Scott Jr. from the Paranormal Chop Shop, loving Halloween as we speak. We're going to get into some paranormal here, change gears a little bit. All right? Because it came out on The Angry Ghost Hunter and the ghost show we do, Ghost of the Great White North with Merle, about these paranormal teams around North America and the world where investigating just isn't enough anymore. They're wanting to lock down locations, putting museums, restaurants, buildings, other areas of haunted phenomena. They're locking down these areas with these pseudo-contracts, if we could call them that, stating that no other paranormal teams are allowed to investigate in this building, this place, this house, whatever it may be. Now, I have a real dislike for the paranormal. Not the phenomena itself, but for a lot of these paranormal teams. because the majority of them claim they're conducting scientific experimentation when you know that the majority of them haven't conducted a high school experiment since high school in science. So I don't even think they know what the term science means. But locking down locations really shows, in my opinion, a sense of greed, a sense of ownership, and a sense of a real lack of understanding on how science and the paranormal can come together. John, I want to start with you on this one because you have that kind of a background in the scientific fields. Is this healthy for a community to grow when teams are more worried about locking down locations so other teams get screwed by not being able to investigate there? Or is this really about science? Turn your mic on, John. You're muted.
Sorry about that. I finally did it to myself. I see it happen to everyone else. So my position actually changed on this after I put some thought into it because I started thinking about the different perspectives, and I realized that the conclusion I've personally come to is that I think if the investigative team is asking for it for a limited period of time and a relatively short period of time, because of the nature of the experiment they're doing and because they don't want it to be tainted or because they want to do something that's an ongoing experiment, I can completely see them asking for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I mean, to me, that would be reasonable. Outside of that, I don't think that the teams asking for that exclusatory process should ever be validated or allowed. On the other hand, if the location themselves, especially, let's face it, we all know of locations that have had some real problems with people, right? They've had some real issues with investigative teams. Mm-hmm. And so if a certain location finds a team that they like, that they feel comfortable with, and as a team that it's the first time they found a team and if they want to offer exclusive rights, hey, that's their ball game, right? So I hope they don't lock it in for a long time. I think it's a little unfair to other investigators, but I would understand why they're doing it, and it's their property. So I think ultimately, if it's the teams doing it, I think that it should only be done for very limited periods of time, for valid reasons that are in agreement by the owner. But I think when it's the owner themselves that's doing it, you know what? It's their property, and I understand their fear of different teams. And I could see getting into a position where you find a team that you really like and you really trust and you really get along with, and you're like, you guys are it. I don't want to deal with anyone else. And I could see that, and that's their right.
And I agree with you on that, John. Okay? That if a team wants to have a location and their camera is set up for, say, 2-3 weeks just to see what evidence they're getting, I think that's healthy. I think that's smart. I really do. All right? Or your other point that you made, which is there are businesses out there, or maybe museums or other places that are considered haunted, where the ownership doesn't want 10, 15, 20 different teams coming in there and investigating and either A, making the hauntings worse, or B, doing things that are highly unprofessional. I understand that. I think those are two extremely logical points that need to be validated. But when you get these teams who are saying, we have a contract with such and such a museum in downtown wherever, Vancouver, Toronto, New York, Seattle, wherever it may be, and nobody else is allowed in there, even though we're only going to investigate that place maybe twice in a year, if that, I think that is complete garbage and egotistical.
And quite honestly, is probably taking advantage of the ignorance of the owner, right? It's probably a location that hasn't had a whole lot of experience, and they're pressuring them to do it, right? Because let's face it, for the location, right? Depending on how on how they might be compensated for that time, they might be losing out on an opportunity to actually get investment put back into their location, right? I mean, depending on what's going on, right? And so for them to be locked down to one person, I would be so curious to really hear the whole story when those deals have been struck, because I have a sneaking suspicion that those teams are coming in with a lot of knowledge and are taking advantage of the asymmetric nature of that knowledge that the site isn't as worldly as they are. I think all those deals should be very suspect.
I think you're absolutely right, because Big Willy will bring you in here on this one, because there are a lot of teams out there who do know and fully understand that the majority of the public has no idea how the paranormal works. They haven't investigated. They've maybe gone to Google, okay, or they maybe they're a big numbered team saying, hey, we've got 4,000 members across the world because of a Facebook page. All right. And here they are claiming that, they're the best, they're this, they're that. And if you want the best and the biggest to keep this is what we need to do in order for us to investigate. I mean, there's all sorts of games that people will play, Will.
Yeah, and I think one of the important things that you did bring up, and I know that both you and John have done a great job addressing this, is that there have been some instances where I can't remember the name of the one museum that had opened themselves up, and the people came in and I believe either actually painted or scraped paint off. Do you remember that particular instance that took place?
That was actually Merle who brought that up at a museum in Merritt, British Columbia, where the museum the museum staffers walked into the museum one day, and they were going down the stairs into the basement, and they actually saw like a pencil drawing of a demonic entity on the wall, and there was some very coarse language that was written on there as well. They have no idea who did it. There was no break-ins. The place is extremely haunted, and this ghost team comes in there without permission of the museum and painted over it. And that team couldn't understand what they did wrong on getting banned from the facility.
Yeah, I can't imagine anybody else that's deeply involved in the paranormal community that goes out and actually investigates. Hearing that and reading that probably broke their heart, I'm sure, the next day. Because it could be almost applicable to what was going on, and neither here nor there. But like with the crop circles, where people would, my concern is a little bit with the blocking off. If there is an instance where they need to block it off, I guess I am a little unfamiliar, obviously, with how they operate generally. But I'm not sure why two teams couldn't operate together. And what I mean by that is, we have those that go out in the field that investigate when there's been a sighting of a craft or anything of that nature. Sure, you want to be the one that breaks the story, as it were, but at the end of the day, the most important thing is this information getting out and helping move that marker for the entire community a little bit further down the road. In my opinion, that's how I look at it. So I don't think I could ever support someone who's closing this off, and like you said, these really bogus claims of like, you let someone else in here, we're going to take you to the court, you're going to get sued. To me, unless something was drafted by a court and was actually put into motion, they're standing on nothing. And to me, I tend to see some greed in that. It's just the first thing I think of is, okay, someone wants to sell a book by the end of this. That's the hope. And so for me, I've always been about associating more eyes on the situation than just one or two, unless it's something that's a very disturbing case, perhaps. And then you don't want people in there poking at whatever spirit may be in there to tease them and be like, all right, come out, here I am, do your worst. So I believe, again, not my realm, so I can't give a lot of opinions on it, but that'd be my 2 cents.
Nicole.
I agree with a lot of what everybody has brought up in this last few minutes, and I think what we're talking about or comparing and contrasting here is like, to begin with, what is the narrative of this scenario? Mm-hmm. Is it for like entertainment purposes, or is this truly a scientific endeavor? And I think with most programming that I see with like paranormal research, it's not very clear like what those parameters are and if there's guidelines set. And I know if we're talking about like a scientific endeavor, like what you're hoping to achieve is something that's like testable and repeatable. So you have to have like certain parameters and guidelines in place so that can be adhered to, so somebody else can try. So I agree with like maybe limiting an area to one team at a time, but I think that takes some like collaborative effort if it is going to venture out of the entertainment side, or at least just the discovery side, and into the true science of, is it repeatable? Can we do this again? Has everybody agreed on the end goal that they're trying to achieve? You know, that's where you bring in different teams, but if they all have a different end game in mind, they're all going to have different parameters set and everything, and they'll get different results. So this is one of those opportunities, I think, where it's can't be every man for himself. Like there has to be collaboration going on here. So that's my 2 cents.
Well, I mean, much like the UFO community, though, Nicole, there's a lot of singularity and cliques and
Right.
and areas where people do not trust the next person beside them because they're more worried about getting screwed over than actual evidence. All right, and let's face it, 99% of the paranormal teams out there have no clue what to do with their evidence or what they're doing with it.
Right.
They're collecting it. If you ask any paranormal team, and I challenge anybody listening to this, if you go up to a paranormal team and you ask them, what do you do with your evidence? Well, we collect it, and we go through the evidence, and we see what we caught. Okay, so what do you do after that? What do you mean? Well, we store it, and we hold on to it. Well, what are you saving it for? What do you mean? They can't answer that question. And those, Dave Scott Jr., are some of the most important questions that need to be asked. Because here's the thing. If Junior has a paranormal team, and Willy and Nicole and John each have a paranormal team, and we're all investigating at different times the same location, if I get a dark shadow walking against the wall, I want to know if all of you at that same time and night got a shadow walking against the wall.
Right.
Right?
Welcome to science.
Right? And it might not be at the same time, but hey, maybe the shadow person I saw was wearing a black fedora looking like John Hudson, or maybe yours was not wearing a hat, okay, but looked like it was dragging a chain or something along those lines. So now we have two, unless the shadow person got changed and then a costume change. We don't know. But we can't change and find anything scientific if we're not sharing evidence, if we're not working together, if we're not in or if we're in too much competition. You know? Let's go with you, Dave Jr.
Yeah, if people lock down sites like that, it would hurt us as viewers, because I just recently got into watching the paranormal stuff like that, like the Ouija board stuff, and I met a lady named Kara Davis with Third Eye Adventures, and she took us to this most beautiful castle that I've ever seen in my life. I didn't even realize there was still castles around like that. It looked like something out of a movie. They got to go there. They got to do their thing. They got to do their readings. And as far as they're so respectful of their surroundings, they would never hurt or harm or tag anything, you know, where they're at. But I would have never got to see that if that would have been locked down by, you know, Big Willy's team, and I'm not a subscriber to him, you know, and I wouldn't have got to see that. And that to me is like, it's about the information, guys. It's not about the wait for my team and hey, look at me, hey, look at me. You know, just give us the info. And if you can't do it right now, then let John's team do it, Willy. You know, I'll watch yours when you do it, I promise. But if John can do it sooner, I want to see it now. don't lock it down. Don't try to keep something from somebody else so you can have that look at me moment. Look at me, I did it, guys. Let someone
you bring up a good point though, because a lot of these ghost hunting teams, their goal isn't to solve any of these major mysteries that are out there. Whether it's life after death, whether it's other dimensions that they're connecting with, or portals, or who knows, maybe true crimes. They're not trying to do that. What they're trying to do is they are trying to get a television show, get a documentary. And so many times I have talked to paranormal teams, if you go back 5 years ago in the history of this show, you go back in our archives, every paranormal team we talked to, or almost everyone it seemed like, had a television pilot that they were doing. They were going to be the next Zach Bagans or Jason Hawes, right? That's what they were up to. It wasn't about their evidence. It wasn't about trying to solve anything. It was all about television. John, I know you want to speak up.
No, it's just, first off, I got to ask you, man, if you don't mind me saying, like, whereabouts in the country was that castle?
Junior.
That was in Northern Ireland. That's where her team is from.
Oh, okay.
It's so nice.
You got me all excited, man. I was like, somewhere in the States I can go see a castle. So, okay, sorry.
It's Northern Ireland. That's why I've never.
Yeah, but no, but you bring up a fantastic point. I mean, you take for example, that penitentiary where Shawshank Redemption was filmed at, right? That's a known spot, right? They have this room with the chair that moves around and this and that, right? And I have a good friend who does some investigations on his own on the side, and he happened to make friends with one of the security people at the location, right? And so this got him access to that place for a night, right? And I know there's other people who have gotten access into it, and that's a really interesting place. And the thing is that I don't know what it's like up where you are, but I'm down in the Bay Area, and I don't really know of a whole lot of places that have any kind of activity at all. And if there is a place that's got activity, that might be one of the only places around that you can get any kind of exposure to any kind of real stuff. And the idea of that being locked down by someone, that's a tragedy. I mean, that's just wrong. I mean, it's just like, I mean, can you imagine being like, especially if you were new at this and like you finally find out there's this amazing location, within 300 miles, and you drive out there and some dweeb team that hasn't been there in 6 months has it locked down? Oh man, it'd be so frustrating.
And again, that's where it comes back to: are we stroking personal ego at this point, or are we trying to move that marker further down the line for the future generations?
Yep. Well, and the thing is that what new and improved Dave Scott said a minute ago was really important, because the thing is that when he said, hey, if this team can't go, I'd rather someone else go, right? I'd rather someone else go, right? What that shows, what that mentality shows, is an understanding that each team is going to do an investigation of the same quality, right? And that you can trust another team to go in there. And what this does is the problem with this is we don't have a lack of standards that allow that to happen, right? And so you do have people getting this ego build up where they're like, well, we're the best investigators and we're the only ones who can find it, which is a load of crap, right? And so, I mean, okay, yeah, one team might get lucky and you might have one team that's got a couple bright people on it, but let's face it, there's procedures that everyone does and there is a commonality there. And so what you talked about should be the norm. It shouldn't matter to people who investigates which spot. It should be who can get there, who has the time, who has the resources, and are they going to share the data? And that's what matters.
What about the flip side of this? Now, Dave, I don't know if this is okay to kind of bring it back to the original topic. Oh, so, all right. So, in a nutshell, is this really an issue, or is this something that's being planned within the community to take away from the important part of it?
I've heard it's an issue.
It's a big issue in the paranormal community. Big issue.
Perfect.
And that's the problem. I'm going to get you guys to hold on right there, because we are going to go to our final commercial break here on Spaced Out Radio tonight on the Roundtable, which happens near the end of each month. John Hudson, Nicole Sakach, Big Willy, and Dave Scott Jr. are all here hanging on out. And when we come back, we're going to get into remote viewing. This is a topic that's come up recently from Lou Elizondo. The CIA as well announcing that they may have had a remote viewing program. What is it? How does it work? We'll tell you all when we come back on Spaced Out Radio. The fact, Sonny, that earlier on you were giving the finger update to shut up.
So awesome.
That was amazing.
That was so awesome.
Did you really read my intro at the beginning? You copied?
Yeah.
I gotta see this. Hold on.
You guys, just to chime in a little bit with the paranormal talk, which is outside my wheelhouse, but I dive into it more and more when people compare the worlds of ufology and paranormal, and is it the same soup that we're swimming in? And I think a big problem is there isn't that centralized database where people can turn to and look up all these different cases. You can, everything's kind of relegated to like local history museum or, these, if you're lucky, there's like universities that have stuff. Like I know there's a few out there. Grant and I have looked through archives. There's one in California that has a huge archive on apports and apport phenomenon. So that's
really?
kind of a crossover between ufology and paranormal. And then there's also the history of the spiritual movement, the spirituality movement at the turn of the last century.
Yes.
That was such a cultural driver for this. Yes. And I think it's such a huge community right now that without that centralized database, people don't really have that place to compare data and find the similarities outside of the folklore stories, you know?
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, like Cheryl Costa's stuff is such a perfect example of that, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I understand the value of selling the books and so forth, but I don't want a book. I want an API. Right. I want something I can write code to that I can I can put a little search engine into it and I can just look for stuff on my phone so I can use it when I'm that data is valuable, right? But I tell you, I have a background in databases and so I've been thinking a lot about what you said because one of the biggest problems we have in machine learning is normalizing those data sets for ingestion, right? I ran into a problem where even two of our own products, right? Like one field had an extra space after the comma and the other set of data didn't. And we had to go through and change literally hundreds of thousands of rows just to normalize those two fields so they could match. And so I've been putting a lot of thought into this. And what really scared me off of the whole topic is Jacques Vallée. Because it turns out this is what
Dave,
he
how long
did.
Do we have?
We got about 3 minutes.
Okay, perfect.
This is exactly what Jacques Vallée did for the Aesop. Aesop.
What, John, hold on one second. I want to look at this. Look at this.
Nice.
This is just horrible. Hold on, I can't even hear the audio. Hold on.
I can't hear it either.
Thank you so much for tuning in. We really do appreciate your listening ears. No matter where on this beautiful planet we call Earth you are from, I would like to say hello to all of you. And we got a special guest in the studio, Angel. Say hi. And we got a couple guys backstage. We're going to bring them in now, and then we're going to see who got first place in chat tonight after that. Here we go. Our first guy is Chad Smith.
What's going on there, Mr.
I'm Chad Smith.
That's right.
Wow. Angel's Chad
Smith. I bet
Smith.
you didn't know he's going to be on the Dave Show.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that.
Sonny couldn't make it tonight.
All right.
Dude, that's hilarious, man. That's hilarious.
We're going to watch more of that in the after show.
No, there you go. But I mean, Nicole, I don't know if you heard what he did for that program, but he designed the database for OSAP, right? And basically what he ended up having to do is ended up having to create 11 completely differently schema databases just to be able to account for all the varied material that they were having to consume, which is exactly what you're talking about, right? There's so many different areas this data comes from, and the truth is you can't normalize that for everything.
Gotta wind it up here, guys.
Yeah, but he had to go with 11 bloody databases and then create a way of normalizing that to a front end. And God, I would kill to see how he did it.
Here we go, 5
Kill
seconds.
to see how he did it.
Hey, Data, how are you? Welcome back. Here we go. We rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. It's been a crazy night. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot, reading up on Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. For the final time tonight, we introduce our panel of guests for the Roundtable discussion. Author and researcher Nicole Sakach. From the Unbiased UFO Report here on Spaced Out Radio, John Hudson. Big Willy Townsend from UAP Garage, and soon to be joining Spaced Out Radio as well. UAP Garage. UFO Garage. Where the hell did that come from? And my twin, my younger brother, Dave Scott Jr. from Paranormal Chop Shop. Make sure you hit subscribe to all of their channels. And Nicole, we're going to kick things off with you on this one, because all of a sudden in the last few weeks, is that what kind of drink is that?
Space technology.
You were drinking a juice box.
The Capri Sun or something. There you go.
I haven't
It
had
is. I had to take a step back from the caffeine ingestion. I'm getting a little jittery.
I haven't drank a Capri Sun in like 30 years.
They're great. Start packing your kids' lunch boxes, Dave.
You know what my son drinks? Water. He likes water.
That's awesome.
Good for him.
Yeah. Yeah, he just likes water. He's a weirdo that way. Just a weirdo.
So what are we kicking it off to? I got totally distracted by my extraterrestrial technology.
All right. Remote viewing. All of a sudden, the last few weeks, Luis Elizondo has talked about remote viewing. It came out that Elizondo may have been a part of a remote viewing program. And just this past week, the CIA came out with one of their historians looking into whether or not the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States, ever had a remote viewing program. This is phenomenal news that is just, if 90% of the people out there walking along and around North America actually knew this and took it seriously, this is big news, Nicole.
It is big news. Paradigm shifting, I think, with like what we think is acceptable and what we think is woo, like what we love here on your show. And honestly, it's been kind of a love affair for me with ufology and remote viewing and trying to unwind this possible interwoven history of it all. And SRI always comes into play. And I think I brought up Uri Geller earlier when we were talking about like remote viewing Mars and the moon. And I think it's a misunderstood consciousness ability. Like I know from the research that I've done, this isn't like exclusive to only certain people. There is a spectrum of talent in this. And some of the older players, you know, that are in our community, you hear their name a lot. Like Hal Putoff was involved with this. Of course, Russell Targ and Uri Geller. We hear the name Pat Price. And then there's players like John Alexander who are in our community, Non-Lethal Weapons, pop culture reference, you know, The Men Who Stare at Goats. You know, the very beginning of the movie, they say, more of this is true than you'll ever believe. You know, and there's this whole lore about like a new world army and what you can do with your mind as opposed to your body, you know, like that sort of lens, if you want to put it on this world that we have. So we have a scenario where this ability has been tested and it's tried to be repeated. And we know that there's tricky parameters involving like how you can test people's abilities. But one interesting thing that comes up for me is like time and time again, they talk about the best people that can do this. And a lot of times their accuracy, like they talk about Pat Price being the best at that time, but he was only 65% accurate. So I think it's something that is a useful tool, but it can't be relied upon. And I think it's a window into this collective consciousness world that we know is somehow connected because it's all connected. So I'll let somebody else take it from there. Maybe I'll jump back in, but remote viewing.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a super challenging topic, and it's such a good tool to look at the way we all process this kind of information, right? Because you can hear the stories or whatever, right? Then you can take Professor Jessica Utt's document, right? Which have fun going through. She's a statistician, and you can tell. And that document proves, without a shadow of a doubt, that there is something very real going on, right? Now, I've seen people try to poke at her methods and so forth, but good luck validating that. She is a fantastic statistician. But even that, like, it's still hard to believe, right? And then you can talk to people who have done it, right? And that might bring it a little closer to you, okay? But until you've actually experienced it yourself, it's really hard to believe. It is really hard to believe, right? But here's the thing. Everybody can, right? I mean, there's a bunch of really actually decent classes on YouTube on how to do it, right? And so, you know, so everyone needs to try it. But aside from the reality of it, right, what needs to be stressed is what you just alluded to, Nicole, and that is that, and this is exactly what's in the Stargate slides, and this is exactly what was in the CIA's memo that they released the other day, which is that it you know, then the CIA, the way they phrased it was hilarious. They said what their exact phrasing was, it is beyond, what is it, like beyond normal rates of success or something like that. I mean, they so carefully worded it, and the thing was so funny about how they worded it is the whole thing you do in these kind of experiments is you measure against the chance of it happening and how many degrees off you are of that, right? Which is why you'll see Dean Radin talk about the fact that it's like 1 in a billion chance. So for them to say that we now have proof that it's beyond even, it's beyond odds. They didn't say how far beyond odds, They just said,
Right.
we now know for a fact it's beyond even odds, right? Which was their very careful way of saying, damn it works, right?
Mm-hmm.
But with that said, and what's covered in the DIA slides is that it is not consistent,
Mm-hmm.
it is not reliable, and it can never be used as a single source of intelligence.
Right.
As a secondary or a tertiary source of intelligence, it is incredibly useful. It is
And that's
really,
when you're talking about gains and advantages. Like if that little hat trick can give you even something as minuscule as like a 2% advantage in a situation, then you're going to take it out.
Yes.
Now,
and the thing is what Elizondo, what I want to add really quick is what Elizondo has actually said, or not what Elizondo said, what came out in the book. What wasn't just that we'd heard before that Elizondo went to some of Hal's training, right? There's even a story that he ended up in there by accident and didn't stay for very long. I forget how the whole story went down. It was kind of a funny story. But what came out in the book is that one of the incidents in the sandbox when Lou was there, that his life was actually saved because of a remote viewing that he personally did. That's a big data point, right? That is a really, really big data point. And to what you said, Nicole, it all depends on what you're gleaning and what your skills are. One of the things that Pat Price could do that very few other people could do is he could read. He could read words off of things that he saw. Very few people have that skill. And so that's what he and Hal got in trouble for, was because they wandered onto that base that was up the hill. It was a top secret Navy facility. And Pat Price read the names off the file headers, which turned out to be SCI code names. So these are the names that you need to know to get into an SAP type program, right? And so, like, just knowing the name of these programs was a federal crime. And Pat Price was all, and it's this, and it's this, and it's this, and they submitted it as a report, and a whole fire and brimstone came down on those people. How the hell did you know this? Blah 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 blah. I mean, it was actually kind of scary for them, right? So Pat Price was on a whole different level, but they met Pat Price because he walked up to them at the Christmas tree lot in Mountain View that I used to buy Christmas trees from, right? Because as I grew up, I live right near SRI, and he just walked up to them out of the blue and said, "Hey, I hear you guys are working on this this crazy remote view. You know, give me a call sometime," right? Like out of the blue, and then on a whim they called him, and he did. That's how they found Pat Price. Pat Price was a retired guy out of the blue. So what's to say there aren't a ton of other people that can read documents? So it was a rare thing that Pat Price had, but I think it was rare because of the small number of people we've tested.
I've heard rumors that there are a few women remote viewers that are in play now that just put Pat Price to shame. So I hope maybe they will decide to become public again, or more public than they have in the past, and maybe we can get some answers.
I'm going to bug you later for details. I don't even know names. I just want to hear what they're pulling off, man. That's awesome. That's,
right. No, and that's a lot of the stories. It's like 30 years ago, they were doing some exciting things, and now they might still be public, but they kind of don't talk about that work that they were doing at the time for various reasons.
Oh, but and actually,
a lot of them are in the public domain still. So
no, and that's the thing, is a lot of this stuff is public. It's even used by businesses.
Right.
The one other point to bring up that's important is that one of the biggest challenges with this research is that at some point you run into time variance issues, right? And the problem is then people start getting excited and start thinking it's a way to tell the future. And the truth is that there are some interesting ways that you can do that. There's this whole association practice that people do where they associate an object to something else in the future, and they're able to actually glean certain information about the future. So there is some truth to it, but here's the problem. What this means is that when you remote view, what you're seeing is not guaranteed to be right now. Now, if you're looking into a place that you're familiar with, or a place that is in a civilized area, you can see indications that let you know what year you were in, right? Right. If you start remote viewing the 50s, the cars, if you get an image of a car, it's going to look different. But if you're trying to view the moon, there's no reference. There's no reference at all. You try to view Mars, there's no reference at all. So anything you see on a place like that, you could be looking at yesterday, you could be looking at 20 years from now, you could be looking at 500 years ago, and you have no way of knowing it all.
So just to hit on that point, since you bring that up, John, because that is an interesting, because to me, and I would have to check these exactly. I'm really big on, if something like this comes up, I'm like, I'm going to go print it off the CIA database. Anything that's been declassified, you guys can go type it in, print it off. We're allowed, at least in the U.S. I don't know where you're at, but it sounds like maybe we're hitting on two different ones, wasn't it? Because we mentioned there was the Gateway experience, but then there was also Project Looking Glass, and I feel like, is that why you're hitting on like the future?
Project Looking Glass was so okay. So personally, I feel that Project Looking Glass was something they fed that poor boy to trip him up, right? Okay. I don't believe there was, but I wouldn't be surprised if what they wrote for Project Looking Glass was based on what they were hearing about in this other program, because there was an incident in the Beirut hostage situation where essentially the remote viewers basically looked in, didn't realize they were looking at a day in the future, and they found themselves in a combat zone where people were getting shot. And they didn't realize that they were looking at the future, and it caused quite a shakeup in the thing. And the problem is that it's hard enough getting people to believe that remote viewing might be possible. You start talking about time variance, and you've just hit a whole another level of woo that makes it a lot harder for people to grasp it. And a lot of people don't understand what it is either. You're not going there. You're not walking around. You're just getting images. Just images, there's a mountain, there's a stream, there's a building. Some people get really detailed images. Pat Price drew some stuff that was very, very good, but you're just getting these gestalts, these images that are, and you're trying to decode them, and then you stitch them together into a location. It's not like you're physically going there and walking around and looking at street signs. It's to be honest with you, it's not as cool as it sounds.
Well, to hit on that though a little bit, because I had mentioned this at the top when we first started the show, and I've referred to this several times over the past couple of years. And I'm looking at the document right now from the CIA database, and it was from May 22nd, 1984, was declassified and released in August 8th of 2000. And when this process started, basically, it is a manuscript of the conversation that took place, or the transcript there. And it starts out with this person never knowing what they're going to be doing, getting the envelope to start. But what's interesting is the person who's kind of like giving them questions, gauging them as they're going along, they are giving them exact coordinates, and they're telling them go to this coordinates. So I find it interesting that they're giving specific coordinates. They also give a specific time in the past they wanted to look at, which was approximately 1 million years BC, and they were remote viewing Mars.
So
and I know this gets weird with, like you mentioned, Nicole, but they get very detailed on the times and the locations. It makes it very much so seem like.
But I don't know how accurate anyone's ever gotten on being able to then go to that time.
Well, here though, let's segue a little bit, and I can give a shout out to a fellow lady researcher from the Midwest here. I think she's well known and kind of famous in our community, but her name is Margie Kay, and she's a researcher out of Missouri, but she's also heavy in the UFO community, but also in the paranormal community. And throughout her decades-long career, she has actually worked in conjunction with various police forces and used her remote viewing ability to solve cases. And this isn't something that is like swept under the rug. Like, she is known in the area for this. Like, she has truly used her abilities to solve crimes, and that's amazing.
And they don't hide it. Everyone's pretty public. Oh wow.
Yeah, no, she's in the public. I think she's even MUFON affiliated, but she does teach remote viewing classes. I mean, she's used her trade to help, and I think I can't like quote her statistics on how many cases, but it's impressive. And yeah, she has books out. I think she has podcasts. I think she does, a YouTube channel or something. Cool. Yeah, Margie K. And yeah,
and that's the thing is I keep hearing there are all these people. There's these people all around that have honed into some special ability. And they do it, and sometimes it's undercover, sometimes it's not. And let's face it, we only hear about the cases that are in the U.S., maybe in Canada. How many people are doing this in Botswana? How many people are doing this in Kazakhstan? How many people are doing this in Singapore that we're not even hearing about, right?
In various cultures, it is a gift. You hear about it. Like, I think in our westernized North American thought process, like people that have these natural abilities, they don't have the Temple of Delphi to turn to and say, hey, my kid's special, or they don't have their indigenous tribe to turn to elders and go, oh yes, you're gifted with this. We know all about this, So I think a lot of it is that kind of acceptance of these things that are forgotten in our westernized way of thinking and looking at things. But it's so awesome to see it bleed through into now and what we can do with it. So I'm excited for this turn. I don't know why Lou hasn't embraced it more and wanted to talk about it more, but we'll see if he comes out more later.
Well, I can tell you why I think he hasn't, and that is that I've been in several different conversations over the last couple of weeks where people have flat out said that they're mad that if they had known that Lou was into remote viewing, they wouldn't have believed him this whole time. That essentially the fact that he was saying this about remote viewing for them had blown his credibility. They didn't trust him anymore, and they were mad that had been hidden from them, because now they felt they could prejudge his previous statements.
Well, it is that time once again to say this is one of the fastest roundtables we have ever had on Spaced Out Radio. What a great show. What a great panel, and what a great audience tonight. Live in our chat rooms and listening all over North America and the world on terrestrial radio and our digital broadcast. We really do appreciate it. Big Willy, thank you so much for joining us tonight from UFO Garage, and soon to be hosting the After Hours show on Spaced Out Radio with John Hudson from the Unbiased UFO Report. Nicole Sakach, author and researcher. First time in a long time we've had her on the air, and it just feels like it's home once again. And to my nemesis, Dave Scott Jr., for dressing up like me on Halloween. Sonny from Paranormal Chop Shop, you are the man. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother Is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight on YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Revolution Radio, Spreaker, Facebook, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio.
I know you're out there somewhere.
Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, just ask Chad Smith. He'll take you to your seat. Good night.